The vast majority of men would like to go to heaven, but they do not strive, do not exert themselves enough to find the true religion, or when they have found it, they do not sacrifice their own desires to follow God's commands.
That's Sermons for Everyday Living, weekdays from 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross.
Have you ever dreamed of visiting Fatima and Lourdes? Hi, this is Jim Wright, president of the Station of the Cross. As part of our fall appeal, you'll be entered into a drawing for a chance to win a pilgrimage to Fatima and Lourdes, taking place next year, September 1st through the 10th. Imagine walking the sacred paths where Our Lady appeared, praying where the miracles of grace and healing occurred, and where heaven touched earth. It is an opportunity you don't want to miss. If you received our mailing, check out our flyer that includes information on the pilgrimage and our fall appeal. You can support the appeal by returning the envelope from one of our mailings, or call 1-877-711-8500, or visit thestationofthecross.com, or use the donation page from your iCatholic Radio mobile app. You'll be eligible for our thank you gifts that will help you and your family to grow in your faith. Thank you, and may God bless you and your family.
Hi, my name is Nathan Wakefield, Executive Director of the St. Thomas More House of Prayer in Cranberry, Pennsylvania. I want to invite you to join us at our beautiful retreat center, October 17th through the 19th, for our annual fall retreat. This year's retreat master will once again be Father Anthony Mary Prendergast from the Community of St. John. The theme is We Shall See Him Face to Face. For those who have never attended a retreat at the House of Prayer, get ready for a weekend packed full of praying the Liturgy of the Hours, attending Holy Mass, Eucharistic adoration, confession, powerful spiritual conferences, and more. The cost for the weekend is $280 per person for a single room or $220 for a shared room. This includes overnight accommodations, meals, and retreat talks. So go on over to our website and register today at liturgyofthehours.org/fall retreat. That's liturgyofthehours.org/fall retreat.
Ask a Priest Live, weekdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, is your chance to get answers to all your questions about the Catholic faith. Featuring priests from the Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest, the Priestly Fraternity of St. Peter, the Franciscan Friars of the Immaculate, and various dioceses around the United States. Again, that's Ask a Priest Live, weekdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network and the iCatholic Radio mobile app.
This is Joe McLean, and you're listening to the Station of the Cross, proclaiming the fullness of the truth with clarity and charity.
Heard around the world on your Android and Apple mobile devices.
Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. It's so good to be on with you. Praise be to God. It's Friday. You've survived the week thus far, but I got to tell you, it's going to be the struggle bus Friday for me because I'm feeling not 100%. I'm probably down to about 65% right now. But the show must go on, and today we have a lot to talk about. We're going to be catching up, still more information coming out on the Minneapolis school shooting there at Annunciation. The mom is not cooperating with law enforcement. So we're going to get Dr. Anthony Stein back on the team today. It's Fridays with Stein. We're going to get his take on the Minneapolis trans shooter. I still am on the team that he was possessed. I put out a video about that yesterday. You can check that out on the podcast feed. But also on the team today, we're going to be talking about the SSPX. They just had a massive pilgrimage to Rome. some 10,000 people from all over the world came to process through the holy doors in Rome. They had a mass at a major basilica and much, much more. But then they were quietly removed from the calendar after by the Vatican. Why is that? We're going to get Nicholas Cavazos, the traditional Thomist, on the team today to talk about the SSPX. What's coming next for them? Will they get the bishops that they need? What is their stance? What is their status with Pope Leo? We'll talk about the SSPX. Also, it looks like His Holiness Pope Leo has made his first curial appointments this fall. I got to tell you, 5 out of the 7 names I'm not very happy with. So we're going to get Dr. Stein to comment on that today, too. So there's lots to discuss today. And we're going to put links to everything in the show notes for you over at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. Let's get into it, but share us with a friend. We'd be grateful. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And now your saint of the day.
Saint John the Baptist, pray for us. King Herod had imprisoned our Lord's cousin John because of the saint's zealous denunciation of Herod's adulterous marriage to his brother's wife, Herodias. The queen hated John far more than did the king, who remained fascinated by John's preaching. When Herodias' daughter danced shamelessly before Herod and his men at the king's birthday dinner, Herod promised any favor the girl wished in return. Herodias told her daughter to ask for John's head, and the wicked girl herself added the order that it be brought on a platter. Herod was shocked, but fulfilled his foolish oath. According to St. Jerome, the cruel Herodias was still not content, and continued to stab at the saint's tongue with a needle or small dagger. This feast commemorating John's martyrdom has always deferred in prominence to the Feast of the Forerunner's Nativity on June 24th. And the day is tinged with less joy than even the usual feast of a martyr, because John did not proceed directly to heaven at his death. Nonetheless, the beheading, or decollation, of St. John is among the oldest and most widely celebrated feast days known to the Church, as befitting the precursor of Christ and the man of whom our Lord himself said that none greater was ever born of woman. For more about this day and others in the Church's calendar, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints-and-seasons. St. John the Baptist, pray for us.
And now your headline news. The Hill reports Trump mulls GOP convention before midterms, lauding the GOP's fundraising and touting what he called incredible results for his administration's efforts to reverse the Biden admin actions. President Trump yesterday floated the idea of having the Republican Party hold a convention just ahead of the 2026 midterms, as Democrats say they're considering the same idea. The Democratic Party used to hold conventions during, right, or even before, during midterm cycles decades ago, but stopped in the mid-'80s. Breitbart reports Russia hits British Cultural Office it accused of spying. The British Council, a 90-year-old UK government-owned organization that falls under the Foreign Office, but which claims to be politically neutral, saw its Ukraine office destroyed yesterday. The strikes overnight were one of the largest Russian air raids on Ukraine of the war and unusually targeted central Kyiv. At least 15 people were killed, including several children, and 50 more were injured. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are without power after a wave of nearly 600 drones and 31 missiles were launched. And Catholic Vote is reporting Jewish org accused of endorsing attacks on Christians in Gaza. A prominent DC-based Jewish policy group this week wrote on X that unarmed Christians in Gaza are, quote, part of the battle, going on to say, quote, if they're looking for martyrdom, well, ... close quote. Critics accused the organization of endorsing the killing of Christians in Gaza, who recently announced that despite Israeli plans to escalate military attacks, they are choosing to stay and care for the elderly, the sick, and the wounded who cannot be moved. And those are your headline news. The gospel today comes to us on this feast day from Mark chapter 6, verses 17 through 29. For Herod himself had sent and apprehended John and bound him in prison for the sake of Herodias, the wife of Philip, his brother, because he had married her. For John said to Herod, "It is not lawful for thee to have thy brother's wife." Now Herodias laid snares for him, and was desirous to put him to death, and could not. For Herod feared John, knowing him to be a just and holy man, and kept him. And when he had heard him, he did many things, and he heard him willingly. And when a convenient day was come, Herod made a supper for his birthday for the princes and the tribunes and the chief men of Galilee. And when the daughter of the same Herodias had come in and danced and pleased Herod, and them that were at table with him, the king said to the damsel, "Ask of me what thou wilt, and I will give it thee." And he swore to her, "Whatsoever thou shalt ask, I will give thee, even though it be half of my kingdom." And when she was gone out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask?" But she said, "The head of John the Baptist." And when she was come in immediately with haste to the king, she asked, saying, "I will that forthwith thou give me in a dish the head of John the Baptist." And the king was struck sad. Yet because of his oath, and because of them that were with him at table, he would not displease her. But sending an executioner, he commanded that his head should be brought in a dish. And he beheaded him in the prison, and brought his head in a dish, and gave it to the damsel, and the damsel gave it to her mother. Which his disciples hearing, came and took his body, and laid it in a tomb. The Gospel of the Lord. Laus tibi Christi. The Ignatius Catholic Study Bible would say John the Baptist was imprisoned and executed for publicly repudiating the illicit union of Herod Antipas and Herodias, the wife of his half-brother Philip. According to Leviticus 18 and Leviticus 20, the Mosaic law forbids the union of a man with his brother's wife when the brother is still living. Since Philip was alive and well, the marriage between Antipas and Herodias was no marriage at all. It was adultery. Herod's oath, it goes on, recalls a similar banquet scene in Esther 5-7. Queen Esther was giving a feast for the Persian king when he promised to grant her any request, even half of his kingdom. Esther 7, verses 1-2. Esther then requested that the king spare the life of the Jews throughout the Persian Empire. This Old Testament scenario is the mirror opposite of Mark's narrative. Unlike righteous Esther, the sinful Herodias seizes the opportunity to bid for the execution of a righteous Jew. Father Haydock, writing back in the 19th century, would say, church history informs us that Christians were accustomed to frequent this tomb, the tomb of John the Baptist, with great piety and respect till the reign of Julian the Apostate, at which time the pagans, through hatred for Christianity, broke open his tomb and dispersed his bones. But immediately after, thinking it better to burn them, they endeavored to collect them again. But some religious of a neighboring convent, joining themselves to the pagans under the pretense of collecting the bones to burn, secreted the greater part of them and sent them to Philip at Jerusalem, who sent them to Athanasius, bishop of Alexandria. And in the reign of Theodosius, the temple of Serapis was converted into a Christian church and dedicated to the honor of St. John the Baptist, where his relics were deposited. The Venerable Bede, however, had something interesting to say today. He says, it is usual with Scripture that the historian should relate events as they were then believed by all. So now also Herod is said to be exceedingly sorry, for so the guests thought, since the hypocrite bore sadness on his face when he had joy in his heart. And he excuses his wickedness by his oath, that he might be impious under pretense of piety. Wherefore there follows, for his oath's sake and for their sakes who sat with him, he would not reject her. I mean, what's the poor king to do? You know? Golly gee whiz. Oh, I'm so sorry. I told her I'd give her everything. Golly gee willikers. I guess I just have to cut the head off of John the Baptist and put it on a dish. Oh, well, guess I'll wash my hands of this one, too. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Let's talk about the SSPX. Don't go anywhere.
iCatholic Mobile is a proud sponsor of the Station of the Cross. Solid connections, reliable data. That's iCatholic Mobile, a 5G wireless provider dedicated to your faith and values. Enjoy unlimited talk and text, dependable coverage nationwide. And every plan has unlimited data and free roaming in Canada and Mexico. iCatholic Mobile, the service that connects you to what matters most. More info at iCatholicMobile.com.
Download the app to take our programming with you wherever you go. Hear what listeners are saying about the regularly updated iCatholic Radio app.
The programs on iCatholic Radio are uplifting, educational, and have served to deepen my faith as a Catholic. Thank you for this amazing station.
Download the free iCatholic Radio app in your Android or Apple store today. Please consider giving us a 5-star review or telling a friend about it.
Please join us in a prayer to our guardian angel. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. O holy guardian angel, take care of our soul and body. Enlighten our mind that we may know the Lord better and love him with all our heart. Help us in our prayers so that we may not give in to distractions. Assist us with your advice so that we may see the good and carry it out with generosity. Defend us from the insidious snares of the enemy and sustain us in temptations that we may always be victorious. Remedy our coldness in our worship of the Lord. Cease not to protect us until you have brought us into paradise, where we will praise our good God together for all eternity. Amen.
Be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Can I just give a special shout out to one of our sponsors, realestateforlife.org. If you're looking to buy or sell a house, could be a win-win for everybody involved. You get a great pro-life real estate agent, and we get a wee bit of that commission when the house sells or when you buy it or whatever. And it helps to support us, what we do right here at the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. So when you visit realestateforlife.org, make sure to tell them the Station of the Cross sent you. Praise be to God. Coming up at 30 past the hour, Dr. Anthony Stein is back on the team. We're going to be talking about not only the trans shooter in Minneapolis, the mom's not cooperating with the law. We're going to get his take on all of that. But also the first Curial appointments are out under Pope Leo. 5 out of the 7, not loving him. I'm just going to say that right now. I don't love it. But we're going to get Dr. Stein on to give us his comments. But praise be to God, there was a massive, massive pilgrimage recently to Rome. Some 10,000 people from all over the world to come and be with the SSPX as they make their pilgrimages through the holy doors there in Rome. And the sights and the scenery was quite beautiful and amazing. But then quietly after, the Vatican removed their pilgrimage from the books. Why is that? I don't know. We're asking Nicholas Cavazos this morning from the Traditional Thomist YouTube channel, and he joins us. Good morning to you, Nicholas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, my friend, for having me on. It's good to be with you.
Praise be to God in all things. So the images out of Rome were pretty amazing. Huge crowd.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Basically, what a lot of people don't know about the SSPX is they're not schismatic, right? They actually go to Rome. They actually believe in the Catholic faith. In 1975, there was a year of Jubilee that took place in Rome, and Archbishop Lefebvre, who at that time was in a bit of, let's just say, hot water with the French bishops, and there was a lot of polemics being thrown around back and forth. He took his seminarians with him to Rome to show their great fidelity fidelity to, as he called it, the Catholic Rome of all time. After he passed away, the auxiliary bishops of the SSPX in the year 2000 also did the same thing, bringing with them, I think at that time it was around 200 or so priests and many thousands of laity. But in this story, we have just this gargantuan amount of people coming from all around the world to go and support. I think it was some 500 priests of the Society of St. Pius X, as well as several hundred affiliated religious in their pilgrimage. And of course, what's so epic about this pilgrimage is that there was so much media coverage of it when it came to things like the internet and social media. So it was a fantastic pilgrimage.
So why then would the Vatican, and I'm going to link to the story here out of the Catholic Herald, says Vatican drops SSPX pilgrimage from official Jubilee 2025 calendar. I mean, a week before that, we had the report that said the Vatican added them to the calendar. And then the pilgrimage happens, and now they're taking, why would they do that? Why would they remove them after?
Yeah, what thing people have to keep in mind is that Rome is a political machine. I oftentimes find with young converts, especially converts around my age, that they look at Rome through this kind of pithy theological lens, and they don't understand that the Vatican is itself a state that is involved in politics. So they allow them to be on the website. That's something that was pretty cool to begin with. This is actually something that's similar to back in 2000. Pope John Paul II actually gave some public allowances to the SSPX to come. And so this was a great sign, but yet at the same time, as you rightly point out, they're not on the calendar anymore. So what's up with that? My best guess is this, because I'm not an oracle, but I don't think it's too hard to read the room either. I think that at the end of the day, what ends up taking place is that there is a lot of people in Rome, particularly in places on the higher echelon, who do not like the SSPX. They do not like the SSPX because the SSPX for the better part of 50 years now has been essentially a major thorn in the side of this conciliar program to reinvent the faith, to make it more palatable to the modern world. And I think that because of the great media attention that it was getting, I mean, if you just look at my channel alone, I mean, one of the videos alone got over 60,000 views. There was a lot of media attention. I think that there was probably somebody in a Curial office that was saying, yo, let's get this off of it. We don't want it to be on there.
Okay, so what does that mean as far as the relationship between the SSPX and Pope Leo XIV? Because there's a great article over at Rate Chili. I'll link to that as well today. It says SSPX Episcopal Consecrations, Learning from the Past. And, it begins to speculate on whether or not Pope Leo will allow for bishop consecrations. There was a lot of talk under the Francis pontificate, because he would often receive the SSPX in audience, that he would probably allow them to consecrate. Now it sounds like not so sure. So how do you see that?
Yeah, really, it's anybody's guess. However, if I had to be a betting man, personally, I would lean toward him giving the SSPX permission. The SSPX, really? Of course, is going to, I do. And the reason I think that is mostly because when we look at what is the kind of overarching political desire that Pope Leo has, right? And this can come into the kind of mixed bag appointments that you're going to talk about in the next segment. You can kind of see this mentality. He wants unity, and a unity that unfortunately I think is going to make everybody mad. It's a unity, unfortunately, not based in complete truth, because we do see on the one hand promotions of bad individuals, but on the other end of the spectrum, you do see some at least decent-ish, right? Just decent-ish stuff coming through. Would he allow the SSPX? I think so, most likely, because if he was to say no, and the fallout from that would take place. The SSPX, of course, because of the dire situation that the church is in right now and the absolute need that the church has for traditional bishops, they're going to go ahead and consecrate, right, with fear and trembling. And I don't think he wants that type of drama. I don't think he would want that type of division or split taking place in his pontificate, especially since he's going to be kind of the unifier in chief, if you will, of the Catholic Church. That's kind of the desire that he has at the moment.
Okay, so I get I get that from Pope Leo's perspective. Maybe he doesn't want that drama, so he would probably move forward. But from the other side of that equation, the SSPX side, they're willing to go through it all over again. The excommunications and all that, they're willing to go through all of that all over again.
Yeah, the supposed quote-unquote excommunications, because if one actually takes a look at Canon 13, I believe it's 23, 24, when it comes to discussions around the excommunications, one finds that if you take into effect the subjective disposition of the person that's making the consecration, right? So, for instance, there is a grave harm to the faith taking place, and there's a state of necessity that one has to engage in such actions. Of course, we'll engage in such actions because, really, if you look at it, the Catholic Church right now, we might have a better-ish pope than the last 13 years. I guess we have to, wait and see. But the Catholic Church is in a state of absolute dire crisis. You can't pop into any parish almost in the entire world where it hasn't in some form or fashion been affected by modernism, whether that be the Protestantization of the liturgy, the reduction of traditional catechesis, the steamrolling of traditional communities, as well as all of the scandals that continue to take place. The faith is not being transferred. The faith is not being passed on in large swaths of the church. I mean, if you look around, the vast majority of people who consider themselves Catholic, when you actually dig down into the stats, believe that homosexuality is okay, believe that abortion is okay. Some 95% of American Catholics use contraception, believe contraception is okay. That is against the law of the church. It's against the law of God. And so there is an absolute state of necessity at the moment for traditionalist priests to be ordained, and so therefore for traditionalist bishops to be consecrated.
So what is the canonical irregularity of the SSPX? That's often how it's described. What exactly is that canonical irregularity?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a major, major difference between what's called canonical irregularity and a state of schism. Canonical irregularity just means essentially that in the context of canon law, right? So the church's law, which is positive law. Positive law is just fancy lingo that means it's man-made law. In the context of the church's man-made law, the SSPX doesn't have a formal place, meaning, they're not considered a society of apostolic life or a religious house or something along that nature, right? There's no official place or structure at the moment. That being the case, though, right, there is the teaching of the church, which is known as extraordinary jurisdiction, which means in times of great necessity, right, when the salvation of souls is at stake, the church delegates jurisdictions to priests in order to save souls. And that's where the SSPX very much so falls in when it comes to most of their sacramental ministry. A lot of it now has been regularized even under Pope Francis when it comes to at least 3 of the sacraments. By contrast, of course, schism is the refusal of submission to the Roman pontiff and the bishops that are in communion with him. This refusal, of course, if one looks at moral theology, the refusal of submission is a refusal in principle, meaning we refuse to obey you because you're the Pope, as opposed to the sin of disobedience, which is you are the Pope, but we have to disobey you. Right. And so the SSPX has always maintained that they are not schismatic. And in fact, no one in Rome actually formally considers them to be schismatic at the moment. The question really comes down into, is this disobedience justified or not? And they obviously think that at the moment it very much so is justified. And I would agree with them because the salvation of souls is very much so at stake in the present world.
It's interesting because I was going to say, well, why would the Vatican give them permission to have a mass in a major basilica in Rome if they're schismatic? But then again, they did let the Eastern Orthodox do that too. So I guess that's not really an argument. But what would it take then? What would need to happen in order to rectify this canonical irregularity so that their relations with the Vatican are 100% instead of 80 or whatever it is?
Yeah, that is the question of the century, but we do know the answer. So what's interesting, as you pointed out, is the SSPX has not only been given permission to say Mass in Rome. I've been informed by multiple society priests that they actually have carte blanche permission to say Mass in any church in Rome, and they've been getting that for years. And in fact, even in just this last pilgrimage, we have at least 5 to 6 different churches that they were saying Mass in the context of Rome, which is great. But in order to be canonically regular, the SSPX has always maintained that essentially, and I'll give you the short version of it now, is that there are two conditions that really need to be followed. Ultimately, there's 6, right? But there's really 2 broad ones. Number 1 is that the Latin Mass would be free to all of the world, right? This was something that Benedict XVI brought about in Summorum Pontificum. Many kind of normie Catholics don't understand that Summorum Pontificum was brought into effect because of dialogue with the SSPX. That was one of their conditions. The second one is the, let's just say, repudiation, or at least the allowance of open criticism of certain parts of the Second Vatican Council that are of a non-definitive, non-binding nature. Issues, for instance, like religious liberty, ecumenism, and collegiality, as well as, of course, is fair criticism of the new rite of Mass. These things are not of a infallible nature. They're not of a binding nature in the absolute strict sense of the term. And so a Catholic can, in good conscience, according to all of the preconciliar theologians, question some of these things. So if they get that permission, they'll hopefully have canonical regularization.
All right. Well, I think there's a lot of other questions we could ask. Maybe we'll do that in the after show today. If you want to come back, Nicholas Cavazos, the traditional Thomist, thank you for your insight today on the SSPX. I'm praying for the SSPX. I'm sympathetic to their cause, although I don't go to their chapels. But we'll have to see how it goes under Pope Leo XIV's pontificate. Will he give them new bishops? They only got 2 left, and they're getting older by the day. So we'll have to see. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We're going to have Dr. Anthony Stein back on the team. Let's talk about that Minnesota trans shooter who I think was definitely possessed by a demon. Let me know what you think if you think otherwise, but we're going to get his take on that. We're going to get Dr. Stein to comment on the first 7 appointments to the Curial. 5 are no bueno in my opinion. We'll see you in 2. Don't worry.
So it is definitely very appropriate to get angry, to feel frustrated, especially when we see people, especially pastors in certain offices, who lead others to sin. But we always have to remember that we need to appropriately express this anger as disciples of Christ. Caritas in veritate. It's a fundamental principle. Charity in truth. And the basic point I want to make is this: bad shepherds do not justify being bad sheep. You see, in the face of bad shepherds, many Catholics don't necessarily lose their faith, nor their hope, but in some form or shape, they diminish in supernatural charity.
That's Sermons for Everyday Living, weekdays from 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross.
Hello, this is Steve Gleason with your 1-minute tool for Catholic evangelism. Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. Which of these is the most difficult for you to objectively believe? Jonah lived in a whale? Moses heard God's voice in a bush? Peter's authoritative declarations would be backed by heaven? Or that Daniel survived the flames of fire? Well, here's your 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. Number 1, the results. Most difficult was Jonah, then Daniel, then Moses. The easiest was Peter receiving authority to grant forgiveness. Secondly, the early church was tough. You see, that authority granted to Peter could put one out of the church due to sin, and that same authority was installed to bring one back into the church through personal confession. We understand that reconciliation with the church is inseparable from reconciliation with God. And thirdly, our Bibles are filled with promises, but this promise was to Peter, the apostles, and the generational successors of Peter known as the Catholic bishops. So here's an idea. Take a drive down your street, look up at a Catholic church, and just know this for a fact: that priest inside that church was ordained straight down through the lineage of St. Peter.
Be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. Here are your headline news. Just News reports California GOP legislators propose creating new state from several counties. Republicans are calling for 35 inland counties to secede from California and create a new state as a response to the Democrats' congressional redistricting efforts. Known as the two-state solution, it would allow for the creation of the state under Article and Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution and would require approval by the state assembly and Senate, as well as Congress. Since the Dems hold the supermajorities, good luck getting that done. Ground News reports New Jersey's massive American Dream Mall sued for selling clothes on Sunday. Paramus, New Jersey officials have sued the owners of the American Dream Mall in East Rutherford, alleging 120 stores operate illegally on Sundays. The lawsuit challenges the mall's Sunday retail operations under Bergen County's blue laws, which prohibit non-essential retail sales on Sundays since 1980. American Dream maintains the Bergen County's blue laws do not apply to the mall since it is situated on state-owned land. And Life News reports Pope Leo tells Catholic politicians you can't be Catholic and pro-abortion. Pope Leo firmly rejected the false notion of Catholic politicians saying they are personally pro-life but voting for abortion, saying, quote, "There is no division within the personality of a public figure. There is not on one side the politician and on the other the Christian. You are therefore called to strengthen yourselves in faith, to deepen your knowledge of doctrine, particularly of social doctrine, which Jesus taught to the world, and to put it into practice in the exercise of your responsibilities and in the drafting of laws." And those are your headline news. Praise be to God in all things. We've been covering since yesterday's the tragedy of shooting story in Minneapolis. The details of that come out about this shooter are just disturbing. I put out a video about that yesterday. We discussed it with Brent Haynes yesterday, the disgusting manifesto, demonic possessed, in my opinion, manifesto of this shooter, who clearly was at war with himself over this gender ideology. But many are asking whether or not what mom's role was in that. And we find out today that mom is not cooperating with law enforcement. Maybe that's just because her attorney said not to. I don't know. But either way, we've invited Dr. Anthony Stein, and he's back on the show for Fridays with Stein, and we'd like to get his take on this. Good morning to you, Dr. Stein. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. How are you?
Praise be to God. I am alive, although it's not feeling well, and it's Friday, so the struggle bus is real. But nonetheless, here we are. So what was your take at the news of the Minneapolis school shooting?
I mean, it was, aside from it being a horrifying event that everybody should be praying about and things, some of the responses I saw from high-profile Catholics was, we'll say, deeply disturbing. Watching one cardinal jump immediately to gun control rhetoric was, I'd say, shocking, but the cardinal in question is known as for being a politician, almost first and foremost, so wasn't surprised by that. But as for the mother not cooperating with law enforcement, there has been an open question with this entire shooting. Where did this young person get the firearms they used to do this? They were underage, weren't they? Too young to get them themselves, as far from what I was reading. So people wonder, where did they get the guns? And, well, did the mother buy the firearms? If that's the case, how did the kid get access to them? So there's a whole series of these questions. And it could be that she's not cooperating with law enforcement because she's working with her lawyers to get her situation sorted out, because she may bear some responsibility in this. There's also been other questions too, though, about the mother. I mean, there have been some interesting articles written by some priests and things pointing out the mother's role at the parish and other things, and how sometimes these are not necessarily good signs for people. But I don't see good coming from this at all. This is only going to the story's going to get worse and worse as it goes on. It is absolutely going to get worse.
I don't know if you read any of the actual manifesto or looked at any of the manifesto itself, but the struggle that was clearly going on, the war within himself over his gender fluidity. You know, he was really, really seriously struggling with this. He hated it. He hated what he had become. And he seemed to insinuate that there's pressure from the outside to sort of force him down this road. And he, even though he struggled with gender identity, he simply hated where he was and what he had become through that. It was just, my heart was almost breaking for the guy.
Yeah, parents are told today that if your child exhibits all the signs of having gender dysphoria, that you should affirm them in this. You should support them. That loving them means supporting them and walking them through and accepting them in their delusion. That's not true. We know that's not true. this young person's life may have been saved as well as those he harmed if the parents had said no and not accepted the war on God's creation, on his order of creation that this entire gender dysphoria issue represents. And unfortunately, people lack the courage to do that today. And we are told from very high profile people in the church, very, very high profile people, that we should be sympathetic to the people, not just sympathetic because they're made in the image and likeness of God and we should be concerned for their souls, but sympathetic and accept them and affirm them. These are churchmen. Men like James Martin bear, I think, responsibility in this problem. Not a huge amount of responsibility. This person, he probably never met the man, but he himself advocates for this. He tells us that the church was wrong. He has said on the record the church was wrong, that the Bible is wrong, that St. Paul got it wrong on the homosexuality stuff. There comes a point where you have to hold people in these positions accountable, and they're not getting held accountable. No one in any position of authority has silenced James Martin, and it's time. It's absolutely time to do this. I'm not saying James Martin was the one who pulled the trigger. Maybe that young man never heard of James Martin, for all I know. But churchmen have been playing this game of affirming this diabolical issue, just affirming it and playing along with it. It's time to stop. It really is time to stop. The church must stand against this stuff. It is an attack on the order of creation. It's a misuse of science. It's everything that the church should be standing against, it wrapped up in one single issue. But for whatever reason, they lack the courage to do it.
Okay, so one of the issues about the church standing up that I would love to see is this whole, like, you're not allowed to take if your kid's telling you he's got or she's got gender identity problems, you can't take them to someone who's going to help them sort that out in a positive and good way, a healthy way. You're not allowed to tell them that these things are bad and you're not supposed to be doing that. Like the psychiatry aspect to this is being completely politicized in the wrong direction, weaponized, dare I say, in the wrong direction, which is furthering the problem, digging the hole deeper rather than making it better. Don't you think the bishops, like, shouldn't that be something that the bishops speak out against, like the injustice of that? Like, you're not allowed to tell people, hey, this is sinful, this is wrong, and it's hurting your psychology, it's hurting you as a person, it's hurting you spiritually. The bishops have to take a stand on that, even if it means, I would argue, even if it means they get lambasted by society, or dare I say, even arrested by society. Like in Canada, for instance, it would be jail time for them. So shouldn't they have to risk that to speak the truth?
Yes. I mean, what's the reason that bishops and cardinals wear red? Do you know why they wear red, Joe?
For martyrdom.
Yeah.
To remind them.
And martyrdom can take many forms. And souls are on the line, which I guess these days is just this abstract idea to many of them. So maybe they'll respond better to lives are on the line. Maybe they can't respond because they can't wrap their head around the eternal consequences of what they do. But there are certainly temporal consequences for their inactions. And at the very least, they should be concerned with that, at the very least. But they should, of course, first and foremost, be concerned with the salvation of souls.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think anything's going to change until these bishops make the decision to just go all in and not stop holding back and stop playing nice.
You'd think they'd made that decision when they entered the seminary, but because the time to make your decision to go all in for Christ as someone with holy orders is well before you become a bishop. We'll just say that it should be every Easter when you're reaffirming your baptismal promises. But failing that, they should have made that decision long before they were even in seminary. But they don't, and I cannot understand why the thinking is. of anyone who, we have been told by the saints that those who teach in the faith will be held to a higher standard than others. Pretty sure Jesus even says that in the gospel somewhere, that those who have positions of authority in the church will be held to a higher standard. So I don't understand why someone would treat being a bishop as a managerial post in Catholic Incorporated instead of actually worrying about the salvation of souls with fear and trembling going to work every morning instead of looking at it as now something where they have to play nice in the world.
Your PhD is in social science, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, there's a trend. 1% of the population in America right now identifies as trans. You know, I think it's like 1% of America right now. And that seems to be getting worse. The vast majority of that is sub 35 years old. And there's a whole crime spree now related to this trans community. There's a hatred, a vitriol that is under the water line here in this community that seems to be getting worse. This seems to be a social problem that's going to get worse in our future. Do you see it that way as a social scientist?
I fear that it will, even though the backlash is growing in the broader culture. Most people, it seems, are tired of this stuff. You've seen attitudes, according to the polling data, of everyday Americans, at least, turning sour towards everything LGBTQ, everything about it. The approval numbers are down, support for gay marriage, all that stuff is down. But young people are being caught up in the social contagion, because it is a social contagion. It's because the young people, we were all young at one point. We all remember the pressures and getting caught up in bad ideas, but this is the quintessential bad idea to get caught up in. And then people trip over themselves to affirm people in this bad idea. This isn't like, you know, you come home from work and your kid's got a mohawk, right? And suddenly you discover they have pretty terrible taste in rock music, right? You know, we've got a lip piercing, stuff that they'll grow out of eventually. This is something a little different than this. This is something as bad as what I just described is. This is infinitely worse, because there's an entire cottage industry about exploiting people for financial gain, for inflicting medical procedures on them, things that they will spend the rest of their lives on drugs for. And then, of course, the elevated chance that they will just remove themselves from this mortal coil with a hat tip to the YouTube side of your broadcast.
Well, I got to tell you, any attack on who you are as a person made in the image and likeness of God is a spiritual combat that you're not ready for, because the ramifications, the consequences are profound and eternal. We can't allow the attack on our identity, because it is God-given. We are made in his image and likeness, and that is who we are at our most fundamental level. So this should not exist in society, and as good Christians, we shouldn't allow it to exist in society. Politicians, clergy, or otherwise, we should stand up against this. It's not good for them, it's not good for society, and we shouldn't tolerate it. But let's pray for the repose of the souls of those kids that innocently lost their life. And there's still a little girl, I think her name is Sophia, if I'm not mistaken, 12 years old, in critical condition. She's hanging on by a thread. Keep her in your prayers as well. Coming up after the break, though, let's talk about those Curial appointments and get Dr. Stein's take on that. All of that in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Our Lord commanded the apostles to preach the gospel without fear, to proclaim the truth from the housetops. Now From the Housetops Radio is a weekly program that features the same Catholic doctrine, devotion, and inspiration published for over 45 years in From the Housetops magazine. Produced by the slaves of the Immaculate Heart of Mary at St. Benedict Center in Still River, Massachusetts, From the Housetops offers inspirational lives of the saints, guidance from the great masters of the spiritual life, reflections on the liturgical year, church history, apologetics, commentary on current events, and much more. Now you can tune in weekly to From the Housetops Radio. Join us every Saturday at 6 p.m. right here on the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. That's From the Housetops, Saturdays at 6 p.m.
Catholic radio has just been a lifesaver for me. I still listen to it every day. I start my day with it. I listen to it all day long as much as I can. I am very grateful for it.
It's just an amazing thing to have, as I am new to Catholicism. Obviously, it's not only helping me, but it's helping so many other people on their walk.
Thank you. God bless you for iCatholic Radio. It has changed my life.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
The Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network is dedicated to answering the critical need of access to quality, consistent, professional, and proven Catholic programming. We cannot rely on other media outlets to properly represent our church. Catholic radio reaches Catholics, non-Catholic Christians, and non-believers alike. As a nonprofit lay organization financially independent of your diocese, our apostolate is listener-supported.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. Praise be to God. And I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, iCatholicMobile.com. Support for this program comes to us in part by our friends at iCatholicMobile.com. More than just a wireless phone provider, more than just, unlimited data and 5G and plans for whole families and phones and resources to keep your kids safe from the schmut and the junk and all of that. They're Catholic, praise be to God, and I love them for it. iCatholicMobile.com is the website. Make sure to tell them that we sent you, though. The Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. Thank you, iCatholicMobile.com. Dr. Anthony Stein is our guest, and I want to get into this from Michael Haynes. He reported yesterday, I guess this was reported yesterday, that 7 curial appointments were made by Pope Leo XIV. Cardinal Taglia's on the list, Cardinal Roche, Cardinal Mario Gretsch, Aveline, Cardinal Frank Leo, that's an interesting name. Stephen Brislin from Johannesburg, and then there was Bishop Varden on the list. And I know that you talked about this morning on Return to Tradition YouTube channel, but what do you think about these 7 appointments reported yesterday?
I think I'm of the same mind of what Dr. Mike Hickson had to say about this, that if you're looking for a restoration of the Catholic faith, those 3 men especially are bad news.
Which
for
3?
That. Like it's going to make
3?
Very difficult. Tagle, Grish, and the other one. My brain. I need more caffeine this morning, but it's Tagle, Grish, and Roche.
Yeah, Roche.
Now I've heard some defense of Roche. Weirdly, people defending the Roche choice that, well, he's 75. He's going to retire any day now, basically, and his existing appointment had another year. So a year from now, he'll be gone. You don't know that. This sounds like a renewal of his appointment to me. So,
if anything, do you think this signals like keeping the middle ground? It sounds to me like Pope Leo's mission. That's kind of where I'm coming to this is it feels like he wants to hold the middle ground, maybe make things a little bit more conservative and orthodox, but try to stay as much in the middle as possible and not rock that boat, not go too many extremes on this. So allowing people like Fernandez, for instance, to finish out his 5-year term started under Francis, which I would be, it horrifies me to think about that way. But do you think that that's what his game plan is here?
There have been numerous cardinals who have come out and said that the entire reason that they supported him to be Pope was because they viewed him as somebody who would not undo a single thing Francis did. That he would maybe not continue to push things, but he wouldn't undo anything. And he would let the changes marinate and become solid in the church. These picks do nothing to dispel that.
Yeah.
Nothing whatsoever. I fully expect we'll hear that Cardinal Fernandez is going to at least be allowed to stay on, if not have it renewed. That's the other option. Just have his 5-year term start over. There's your pleasant thought for the day. Cardinal Fernandez is prefect for the dicastery of the doctrine of the faith for the next till 2030.
No,
he'll be eminently papabile by then. By the way,
yikes! That would be scary, wouldn't it? I can't imagine. I can't imagine Fernandez ever being the Pope. To be honest, he had like no support in the last conclave, and I honestly don't believe he'd have support in the next one either. He's just,
I don't think he wanted it anyway.
I think he's way too out on the fringes. And I think most people know that. He's just way out there, which is why he shouldn't be in charge of doctrine.
Well, we don't know what things are going to look like in 5 years ananyway. But
no, we don't.
I'm just saying that it's the middle of the road is not where you want to stand in anything. The moderate position is not you. If you are going to try to hold the church together, allowing the destructive things done in the last decade to continue is not the way to hold the church together. You don't hold the church together by keeping Amoris Laetitia and Fiducia Supplicans on the books, let alone Traditionis Custodes.
Right.
You don't keep the actors there who coined phrases like the new synodal church into positions of authority, allowing some of them to pad their resumes for future promotions, by the way. Think about this. I mean, Cardinal Gresh is the one I talked probably the most about this morning. He's the Secretary General of the Synod on Synodality. He has had a whole lot of curial posts. He's got another one. He's being positioned, it looks like, to maybe be future Cardinal Secretary of State or the head of one of the major dicasteries in the future. And he's the one who coined the phrase new synodal church. What does that phrase sound like? It sounds like they're talking about how we have a new church after Vatican II. So that's always the context they gave. That after Vatican II, we have a new ecclesiology in the church, and it's a new church. We're completing the bringing of this new church. But most Catholics don't want a new church. We just want the same religion we had that our grandparents had. That's all we want at the end of the day.
Exactly. That old time religion.
So promoting these guys. A promotion of these men is no good way to look at it. And I look at Varden as you read his position as hermeneutic of continuity. It's Benedict XVI style conservatism. Better than those other 3 to 5 men.
If I had to choose the lesser of two evils, I'd take a Varden over a Togli, a Roach, and a Gretsch every day of the week, okay? Listen, if this is the only options I've got, I'll take them. I'll take a Varden. But let's talk about Frank Leo, because that's a name that seems very interesting to me. If I'm to believe my producer Jake, he could even be an amazing choice on this lineup, and maybe even the next pope.
No, again, we don't know. I tend to be skeptical that Leo will be there for 20 years, like everybody makes it out to be. He's relatively young, maybe. I hope he has.
No, I wasn't referring to Leo the 14th. I was referring to Frank.
No.
Leo.
I know.
Ontario.
My point is, the could be next Pope stuff is kind of meaningless, though, on the off chance that Pope Leo is there until 2045. That would be
okay.
So it's a bit much. You're
saying Leo's got some time, time and chair. Still,
he might, but he's also an American man of age 70. So the chances of him hitting 90, maybe one too many Chicago dogs in his background will catch up with him eventually. But no, I don't know much about Frank Leo. I'll have to trust you on that. But my other video on my channel today, besides my live stream, is about the symbolic appointments of some decent bishops. I remember people doing cartwheels when Cardinal Sarah was given a one-day post from Pope Leo.
Exactly. I don't know why that's exciting. Honestly, I don't.
That's not exciting. That's
yeah. I saw that. I thought the same thing, and I'm like, okay, good, great. I mean, like, wonderful. But how is that news? It's just like, go say a mass. Okay, I will. No problem, Your Holiness. I absolutely will. Like, that's fine.
But say a mass and give a nice homily, shake some hands, and
yeah, like, okay, wonderful. But what is your message? Well, that's got nothing to do with anything, really. But we're sort of holding on to that. I think it just sort of demonstrates that we really want to see a positive change towards the tradition, towards orthodoxy after the last 13 years. I mean, we really do kind of feel, I guess we're still feeling pretty beat up.
Everybody is watching the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith to see what happens there for good reason. The one I suggest people also watch is the Institutes for Religious Life. How that one shakes out, because that has been where documents like Cor Orans originated that crushed women's religious organizations, where all these apostolic visitations to traditional men and women religious houses came from. All those stories of suddenly the Vatican is getting involved in some dispute between a bishop and in a local convent somewhere, and suddenly the nuns are having to flee, or they're suddenly breaking communion with their local bishop to go side with the SSPX, or a whole host of these other stories. Every year, there's 5 of them that happen. And usually, if the nuns submit to the bishop, their houses get seized and the land gets seized by the bishop. And all that stuff comes from that dicastery. So watch who is pointed to there. That's the
they
one I'm
did that
watching.
recently
That
with
and liturgy.
what was the cardinal's name that is protecting Marco Rupnik? They took a convent away from some nuns and gave it to Rupnik and his little clan. That happened just this past
I don't know,
year.
because Rupnik is rumored to have fled to Brazil.
Well, I hope so. I hope the nuns get their convent back. But at any rate, Dr. Anthony Stein, return to tradition.org is his website. We're going to go into the after show. We'll be off on Monday for Labor Day. We'll be back Tuesday with Mark Lambert from the Catholic Unscripted crew. Until then, share us with a friend. God love you, and thanks for hanging out. So what did you think of today's show? Let's discuss that right now in the after show. Your take on the after take. Comment, interact live with me and the team. All you need to do is search for one of our live video feeds on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, LinkedIn, and elsewhere. Simply search for the Station of the Cross, Joe McClain, or A Catholic Take. I'm looking forward to seeing you and interacting with you directly. It all starts right now. It's the after show.
We're back. Welcome to the after show, everyone. And if you can believe it, it is Friday once again.
Is that a box?
My David Lynch references.
Glory, hallelujah.
Maybe it should just be David Lynch references by Jake. That should be the box.
That's way too nuanced.
Not that nuanced. I make quite a few.
David, I know.
David Lynch.
I quote Twin Peaks all the
family-friendly
time.
Catholic filmmaker.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my point. It's so nuanced.
Put those on Angel what's it, the Angel filters, whatever it is.
Oh,
wouldn't that be like a 10-minute movie at that point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How many people are going to get David Lynch references?
I know. Like I keep making all these Twin Peaks like quotes and all these like all whatever, and no one gets them. But I mean,
I don't get it.
I think obscure. I think no one gets Jake's reference. Probably covers a wide range of.
Didn't he make that Lost Highway movie in the 90s?
Yeah, he made Lost Highway.
I was in high school with a guy who really thought David Lynch was like the next coming of Alfred Hitchcock, basically.
He just never. Well, he didn't make many.
Remember this stuff.
Many what do you call them? Like he didn't really make any mainstream like movies. He made weird art movies mostly.
Yikes!
Although if you want a movie that's not particularly weird and artsy, check out his film about the guy who drives across the country on a riding lawnmower. That's a pretty cute movie. What's the name of it? I'm blanking out the name, but it's got the guy. It's got. He's a great actor. He's Matthew Cuthbert on Anne of Green Gables. He's an excellent old school actor. I'm blanking out his name too. I need to go refill my coffee mug.
How many
That's a really good
Anne
movie.
of Green Gables versions were there? Is there only one?
There's only one good one.
Oh, well, which one is that? I guess
the
next question.
The 80s TV film.
Okay.
The Canadian one.
The Canadian.
I have not seen any of them. So.
Is it?
80s,
the one
90s, yeah.
The one in my mind, I'm not sure it's that old.
Well, there's. I think there was a terrible one on Netflix.
Is that the one? I don't think that's the one. Maybe it's the.
I'm thinking, 1985.
1985.
Starring Megan Follows.
See, we've already launched into the nuance.
I'm just saying, like, these aren't nuanced. These are just obscure.
David Lynch. You guys let us know. Do you want a box on the bingo card that says Jake mentions David Lynch?
I think no one gets
references?
Jake's reference covers it.
Or can you believe it? It's Friday, but then it would be every Friday they get a free box.
Well, yeah, exactly. We're not going to do that.
I suppose that's too easy. You're right.
That's like you mentioning the honey-do list.
Yeah, you talked me straight out of it. You're right. Okay. Well put. Hey, Dr. Bob says, time for the folly. It's after show time. It's the wild, wild west. Anything can happen here. Now, if you're just joining us, we're going to play ACT Bingo for the after show starting next week again. We had Liz Finch as our winner this week. We'll issue a new card on Tuesday because Monday's off. We're not here Monday. Tuesday, new card. We're going to play the game till someone calls bingo. And then we decided we're going to keep the card and we'll play a second game, but it might be like Four Corners or Blackout or something like that. We'll decide when we get there. So that's the plan for next week. So new prizes, new opportunities. But Liz Finch, congratulations. Good morning to you, Paul Voss, Helen Grace, Michael. The straight story. Are you being gender fluid there enough for YouTubes to be talking about the straight story? I'm curious. Judy, good morning. Susie from Down Under, good morning to you. Love the Anne of Green Gables. Speaking of like tangentially related to Anne of Green Gables, apparently somebody posted an article on Crisis Magazine lambasting Jane Austen, and my daughter went out of her mind. She's going to war with Crisis Magazine over that. I'm telling you, they really triggered her big time. So I think she's writing a rebuttal to the story. So it'd be interesting to see if Salmon's posted.
So has your daughter read Jane Austen's finest work, Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies?
There's a reference.
No,
I haven't heard that one mentioned since like
no zombie stuff going on at our house. Thanks, but no thanks. Appreciate it, but no. That's funny though. Dama, good morning to you. What's the new showtime? Did you get a memo I didn't get? We're not moving the hour right now.
They might be asking about Ask a Priest because that's moving.
Oh, the Ask a Priest.
That's moving to 12 noon starting Monday, but I don't know if that's what they're asking about.
Yeah, Ask a Priest Live starts Tuesday in the new slot at noon, Eastern or Central?
Eastern,
noon Eastern. And it's going to be hosted by Rudy Carlos, who's new on the team.
This Catholic Media Network is Ad Orientem. We are Ad Orientem Standard Time.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
New York is Standard Time. I'm sorry, Central is God's country. So there's that.
So true.
Why is it so flat?
Why is it so flat? I don't know. Nicholas, you live in the hill country. There's no flat there.
Maybe it's because of the every mountain shall be laid low and every valley shall be filled or whatever. However the verse goes.
Jake.
There we go.
If you live in Buffalo, you have no mountains or hills in Buffalo. What are you talking about?
You kidding? You have to drive 15 whole minutes to get to all the hills around Buffalo.
But none of them are in Buffalo.
It's the foothills of the Appalachians, and we're literally next to Niagara Falls, which goes over a huge hill.
Yeah, into Canada. So Canada gets credit for that, not you.
No, the whole hill goes across.
It's
the whole. You can drive through the same hill that of Niagara Falls over by Rochester. That hill curves around, and you can drive through it in Rochester.
Buffalo. None of that is in Buffalo.
Yeah,
Buffalo is as flat as it comes. Okay, it's very flat, Buffalo. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong.
Downtown Buffalo is flat.
I do like it. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. But and did you know? I didn't know this until I started working at the Station of the Cross. You can turn off the Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What is this? What is this? Some sort of Bill Gates, World Economic Forum manipulation? What Basically.
Are we doing?
What are we in the Matrix? How do you turn off the Niagara Falls? But they do on occasion. They turn them off so they can do maintenance and such.
It's been a long time since they did it, but
I feel like I'm being totally manipulated by that. I feel like it's no, thank you. No, thank you. You shouldn't be able to turn off a river. Sorry. Chesty, good morning to you. Simplify, Craig. Richard Corwin, you are amazing. You're on the team. Could be more grateful to you. Christine OFS, good morning to you. Many blessings to all my brothers and sisters. Thanks for hanging out. Rob from Flying Tigers. Joe, in Revelation 3, verses 15 through 16, our Lord specifically says he doesn't like moderates. It's true, he does. Speaking of moderates, let's get back to Nicholas Cavazos and the SSPX. Speaking of hold the middle ground moderates, SSPX. I thought, now listen, I don't go to the chapel. I don't plan to go to the chapel. I have nothing against them necessarily. I think I have one real main issue with the SSPX. But in general, I thought that they hated Vatican II. Isn't that how it goes? Like they hate the Vatican II. But I remember listening to a priest of the SSPX, maybe this was a couple years ago, saying, we teach, 85% of it's perfectly fine. We have no issues with it. Like that's one of those misconceptions when you say that's fair, Nicholas, that the SSPX doesn't hate Vatican II like we're kind of told they do.
Yeah, there's a ton of propaganda that's out there about the SSPX, and that's definitely one of them. I think the quote you're thinking about is Bishop Fillet said back in, I think it was around 2012, that they follow and they have no issue with 95% of Vatican II. Because the issue with the council is not one so much of the council putting forward any new doctrines, right, or things along that nature, right, or proclaiming any new dogma, because the council doesn't. The issue really comes for whenever you see these non-definitive statements that really have to do with political matters, especially, get brought into things like religious liberty. I mean, it's a good question. When you go and you look at, for instance, Dignitatis Humanae on religious liberty, you find, in this second paragraph, this idea that the state cannot curb the religion of another person or curb a religious society or a religious community inside of their nation, because this would be an offense against man's dignity. And then on the flip side, when you go and you read the syllabus of errors, you find that religious liberty is a major, major error. And so the society rightly brings forward these criticisms in these non-definitive contexts and say, hey, these things need to be clarified. And unfortunately, Rome, every single time that they have given some form of an answer to a dubia, just like the original dubia with Archbishop Lefebvre, it's always been pretty bad. They've always admitted, yeah, there is no traditional basis for this. Can you help us understand where the traditional basis for this is? And it goes on from there. So, yeah, it's one of those misconceptions. I mean, it takes a little bit more theological nuance to kind of get into the subject.
Yeah, it does. I'm just reading some of these comments. Karen Collins, good morning to you. What happened to Jordan Pacheco? Well, they were moving Ask a Priest Live, and unfortunately, Jordan wasn't available at the new time slot. So we're trying to find some other ways in which to involve Jordan Pacheco, because he's amazing. We love him. But
he's all right.
Jordan's amazing. Are you kidding me? Jordan's amazing. I love Jordan.
He's great. He's all right.
He's such a great guy.
All right.
He's okay.
He's got a wonderful personality. Hey, you talk about Nigeria. I am sick. I'm not feeling well. My brain isn't right on. My head's not on correctly today. Talk about the Niagara Falls. So we were in Niagara Falls a year ago.
I mean, there are parts of Niagara Falls
that look
US
like
Nigeria Falls.
I'm sorry. The last time I was in Niagara Falls, it looked like Pakistan.
Yes.
I hate to tell you.
No, Niagara Falls looks bombed out, and everyone admits it. We all know.
I mean, it was
urban renewal really did a number on it.
I didn't know if I was in Israel or Islamabad. I wasn't sure. It was like
Niagara Falls, US is a
crazy place.
It looks like a post-apocalyptic film from the 90s.
I'm there with Jordan Pacheco and some of my kids last year, and we're doing the whole touristy thing, right? Being totally manipulated, our dollars being sucked out of our pockets to take total advantage of us. And we run into these anti-Catholic Protestants that are there to bombard and ambush Catholics and unawares Christians. And these are like really wacky sorts. They were from a branch that came out of Korea, of all places, believe it or not. But these two guys were not Korean. And I'm like, I just didn't want to sit there and argue with these knuckleheads for any more than 5 or 10 minutes. Jordan wouldn't let it go. He just would not. Like, I'm just like, can we move on, please? I really want to move on. I just want to keep going. I don't want to sit here and argue with people who aren't going to listen and hear your arguments and actually like have a conversation. It's just totally a waste of time. But Jordan would not let that go. He was just going to sit there. He'd still be there right now, I think, if I let him. And eventually I had to after 45 minutes, I'm like, I'm leaving. If you need a ride, you need to come with me, because I'm sort of done with all this. So Jordan is that kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Praise be to God. We love him. We love him a lot.
We love Jordan.
He is not quite a saint, but I'm sure he's working on it. Christopher, it says the carnivore guys are exhausted and sick. Are you trying to say, Christopher, has Jake been? He's been influencing you in the wrong direction, Christopher? Carbs are bad. And we shouldn't pretend otherwise. Maybe their bodies need carbs, and we don't need carbs.
Exactly.
Christopher.
Thank you, Christopher.
And is Jake Christopher? Maybe Jake, this is like his pseudonym, is Christopher. Maybe they're the same person. What are you going to tell me next? I'm supposed to have sugar? Like, come on now.
Christopher and I both know that y'all need to do the honey diet. Then you'll actually have energy in the morning. You'll be like, whoa!
There's a version of carnivore where people are like, well, bees make honey, and bees are animals. So ergo, bee vomit, honey.
Ergo.
It makes more sense to
carnivore.
me than avoiding carbs.
But it's still sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day,
which is good
still
for you,
sugar.
So
I don't know. Okay, I'm sick because I'm sick. It's got nothing to do with carbs, and I have a wee bit of
that is
carbs
true.
every day.
Your sickness is different.
I have a wee bit of carbs every day.
Strange.
I'm not 100%
strange.
carnivore. I'm like mostly carnivore. Like just like SSPX is mostly Catholic, right?
Yeah,
kind of a similar thing. That's the other thing. Again, I'm not an SSPX guy, but yeah, schismatics don't make massive processions to Rome. That's just, I guess. I mean, you could say the Eastern Orthodox go there all the time, maybe, but not in the tune of 10,000. you know what I mean? Like it's kind of one of those things. It's like something doesn't add up 100% here. And yet, here's the thing I do have an issue with on the SSPX. I get this argument that says there's a crisis in the church, so we have to do these things. We have to obey God more than we have to obey man. I understand that. I get that, and I can see room for that. But I don't think that's a get out of jail free card. I don't think that excuses every decision made by the society. But I think that they use that as their we're going to play this card every single time. Like, I don't think it's appropriate. I just don't think it's appropriate for the society to build chapels and dioceses they don't have permission to be in. I just don't think it's appropriate to do that.
Yeah, it's an understandable criticism. I think, though, the question, therefore, again, kind of comes back to the first principle question, which is, are we in a state of necessity? Really, that's when it comes to all SSPX debates, you have to go to that question. Is there an absolute state of necessity that requires these things? And it's like this. Okay, well, let's play this out logically. In places like Germany right now, there is such a dearth of the Catholic faith that if one wants to be saved, one has to go to the SSPX because the local parish has the rainbow flag up and nobody is stopping them, right? That's just one example. So the question would come and be is this. If you have a German diocese in which the parishes aren't preaching the faith, it's like even, for instance, Matt Fradd's story the other day that I covered on my show, right? Matt Fradd was going, he was over in Austria and he was touring around some different places. And he said in one of the areas that he was at, the Steubenville crowd told him, don't go to this parish because the priest is just making up the words of consecration, right? He's just ad-libbing stuff. And I went and read further about it, and no, it's true. Like there's been focus missionaries that have been going over 50 years who have had major issues. The only parishes that are in some of these places that are actually Catholic are the SSPX. So are we going to say, well, you need to follow all of the strict letter of canonical law and make the salvation of souls secondary to your canonical procedures in order to get in there? That's kind of where the argument comes in. And I say, well, no, the salvation of souls is infinitely more important than following the strict letter of canonical law. Now, is canonical law important? Absolutely. But it is secondary to the primary law, which is going to be the salvation of souls. And so one could, of course, debate, does this instance or that instance constitute, a prudential action in this context? You can debate that out, but ultimately you have to settle that question of, is there an absolute state of necessity right now inside of the Catholic Church? And I definitely think there is.
What about the splits within the SSPX? What's up with all the splits?
Yeah, it's a fair criticism that's sometimes leveled toward the society, but then also at the same time, you can level this toward orders like the Franciscans. You can level this at
can you explain it to me, because I don't quite understand them. Like, what are the splits within the SSPX?
Yeah, essentially it splits in two directions. So the majority of splits that you've seen, I would say in more recent times, have been groups that have gone back to more full canonical regularization of Rome. So, for instance, the Fraternity of St. Peter is one, the Transalpine Redemptorists, the Institute of the Good Shepherd, if memory is right, as well. These organizations have gone back and they've made deals with Rome in order to have full canonical regularity. And oftentimes it's portrayed that these organizations receive the same deal that Archbishop Lefebvre was going to receive in the 1980s, late 1980s, during the time of the consecration. However, that's never been actually the case. None of these organizations have bishops, and none of these organizations can publicly criticize the reforms of the Second Vatican Council. And as you can see, when it came to the last pontificate under Pope Francis, there was nothing but crickets from the traditional orders in the sense of their official like media arm actually criticizing stuff. On the other end of the spectrum, you have some groups, mostly sedevacantists, as well as within the last decade plus, a small group of priests that went off with Bishop Williamson, God rest his soul, who kind of colloquially became known as the SSPX resistance. Now, Nick's personal opinion, right, this is just where I speak, I personally take a lot of issue with sedevacantism as well as a lot of the resistance crowd, mostly because aside from the issue, and I don't say that in the sense of like the pearl clutching Pope splaining type. I'm not saying it like that in that context.
What'd you say about
the context of?
Why are you looking at Jake when you say that, Nicholas? Leave Jake out of this.
I only clutch pearls to give them to my lovely fiance. Okay?
That's
so true. So the reason ultimately, though, that I have major issues is because when we look at a lot of the fruit that's come out of those movements, and people are going to get mad at me at this, but I don't care. It's like, it's these insane conspiracy theorists who live in their basements who like think that there's like 4 chapels in the world that are like the true church, and everybody outside of that is part of the apostate anti-Bergoglian church. And it's just, especially when you see these people show up in the comment section, it's like everything's in caps, everything's with 30 exclamation points after it. They always tell you, have you checked out the writings of this like private seer that no one's ever heard of? You can find the link on this website that was last updated in 2002. You have to believe what this thing is. And it's like, to me, the Sede movement reminds me a lot of like the KJV only movement in Protestantism, of like hardcore nutsy Fagans who are off doing their own thing. And it's like, what it is they take a kernel of truth, which is, yes, stats clearly show the church is in a major crisis right now. But then they take these a priori opinions about the issue of, can a heretical pope be deposed immediately? That is very much so in the context of theologians. And they blow this up to be, it's a dogma of the faith. A pope can never say anything bad. And, you must agree with me and also pray my specific devotions, and then you'll be saved. It's the type of person that shows up at a chapel and he's wearing 5,000 different scapulars and doesn't know what the New Testament, it's just I've had so much experience with these people that's where I kind of come off. Maybe it's a little unfair.
Why do you hate scapulars, Nicholas? That's all I heard was I hate scapulars. Yeah. I didn't hear anything else. It's just I hate scapulars.
Nick's a big,
I don't know why you hate scapulars. I guess. Angelique, good morning to you. Lori Powell over on the Facebooks this morning. Good morning, Junior Barra. Praise be to God. Glad you're on the team today. iCatholic Mobile, you are amazing. God bless you. Thank you. Angelique, good morning. Don Franco, good morning. Nicole Andrea, good morning to you. Thanks for being a part of the show today. Says people probably think that SSPX is anti-Vatican II because Archbishop Lefebvre refused in the most proper manner to say the new Mass. He was prophetic. Look at where the new Mass has brought us Catholics. Definitely a part of the problem, isn't it? I would argue with you on that one, Nicole. Well, it's interesting. Besides my missal, I do have a missal from the Angelus Press, which is SSPX. I use that frequently. And I also have a book gifted to me by my wife from Angelus Press on Padre Pio's Last Mass. That is a great book. I highly recommend you read it. Because the section on Padre Pio, the first half of that book, going into that last Mass where he was forced to make it look like it was being, like a Novus Ordo was being said, because they made him face the people and whatever. They get into that. I thought that was very, very good. It was Padre Pio was being manipulated at that point on his last Mass, which is on film. So a lot of people will reference that, Padre Pio, the hijacking of Padre Pio. It's similar to when they shut off the Niagara Falls. We're being manipulated by a world government order at that point. It's just like You can't shut off the Niagara Falls. You can't undo what God has done. But mankind does whatever
we love
it
to play
wants.
God.
We do.
We love to.
We do.
We know better. We just know better, Joe. Like we know best.
We know best.
We know best. We on our internet show know best. Like if
all of our
if anyone wants to object to that, well, too bad. You're wrong.
I
will say maybe this might be a controversial opinion. If the Mass had never been turned into the Novus Ordo Mass, I think we'd still be seeing a crisis right now. I think if the TLM was still kind of the standard, and remember what the TLM had become by 1969, because you had not just the 62 missile, which is basically the real transitional missile because it's starting to introduce all these Novus Ordoisms, but the 1965 missile, which is commonly called the transitional missile, had a lot of stuff in the vernacular. It had if we were under the 1965 missile right now still, we'd still be seeing a lot of issues. We'd still be in a crisis because all this stuff didn't come from nowhere. Like it wasn't. Some people still have this idea, despite the best efforts of a lot of good writers and personalities to explain the situation. Some people still have this idea that basically like we were going great, everything was wonderful, everyone was Catholic, everyone was traditional until 1969, and then the Pope said, "Oh, we're all going to be modernists now." Like.
I'd really like to think that no serious, traditionally minded Catholic thinks that the church was hunky dory until Vatican II.
Well, that's the problem is that a lot of traditionally minded Catholics aren't all that serious. They kind of just read a couple blogs and think they know everything. So
it's a Sedeism, man. Because I mean, that's what the Sedes say. Essentially, it's this.
Yeah, they just pick a different year. Pick a different year to do that. But it's basically everything's good until here, and then all of a sudden it's bad. It's like you can look at you can find
a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah.
Just a couple of minutes ago, I saw someone on Twitter claiming there hasn't been a pope since the 9th century. So,
we've got one of those. 9th. We've got one of those in our chat. We've got one of those who says we've got one of those in our chat. He says Pope Celestine V was possibly the last real pontiff.
Then all is lost. All is lost. It would require St. Peter coming down from heaven to appoint the next pope. At that point, there's no mechanism.
Well,
there
are Sedevacantists who have some private revelation claiming that is literally going to happen.
Well, there is private revelation to that end. I mean, Blessed Elizabeth Canoria Mora had a vision to that effect in the 19th century in Rome.
It reminds me of those who say the Holy Spirit hand chooses the Pope.
I don't.
It reminds me of that. Even though Benedict XVI practically twisted himself into pretzel knots trying to tell people the Holy Spirit does not choose the Pope.
Right. Yeah,
men died the process if people let him, but it's the choices made by men.
Yeah,
they got to let him.
I mean, if you look at some of the stories of past conclaves, like honestly, they are no less crazy than even the crazy allegations of how Russia threatened to nuke the Vatican, so they changed the candidates, all these the ones in the old days were no less crazy. There was just a pope who I think he ended up being a sainted holy pope. Basically his supporters broke in when there was already a pope elected and he just hadn't accepted it yet. He hadn't accepted the validity of the election or something like that. And the supporters of this other candidate broke in, started beating people up and said, "No, we want this guy." And there was a forced vote, and then they elected this guy, and then he didn't want to be because he thought this was forced. And so he resigned, but then the other guy resigned, and then everyone got together and voted this other guy in. And he was like, "Oh, I guess I have no choice." And then he's a saint. Well, there's all that's ridiculous. It's crazy.
I like Athanasius Schneider for a number of reasons. One of them is just his really balanced approach to the Sedevacantist issue and the Beneficantist issue. No matter any canonical irregularities in the conclave that elected Francis, for instance, to use that as an example. The world accepted Francis as the Pope. The vast majority of all bishops, every single voting cardinal, all accepted him as the Pope.
99.9 to the 10th power % of Catholics accepted Francis too.
Exactly. So by default, he is the Pope. No matter any irregular canonical procedures at that conclave, no matter the lobbying of the Lavender and of the St. Gallen Mafia, which they publicly said they did.
Yep,
we didn't even need to conspiracy that one. They just say, "Hey, we did this, yeah." So despite it all, the world accepted him. It is by de facto at that point. He is the Pope. Like it or lump it, it just is what it is. We're never guaranteed a good Pope, but we are guaranteed the gates of hell won't prevail. And it's up to us to be faithful in season and out. And it's hard to do. It was hard to do over the last 13 years. And that's why we're all kind of like a little bit jittery right now under Leo XIV, waiting to see what happens next. But at the end of the day, faithfulness is what we're called to, despite what comes out of the Vatican. And I just don't expect things to be great out of the Vatican now or 10 years from now. I just don't. I don't have that expectation.
Right.
I think they're going to continue to be rocky at best, controversial at, probably. And but at no point does that ever change our responsibility to be faithful.
You'll see things more visibly get better under Pope Frank Leo. Don't worry.
Tell us about
Frank Leo.
Go to that. Let's go.
Now,
Jake is
Dr.
Stein. He's already got the tattoo.
Dr. Stein makes a good point.
I'm sure he's got the flag up already.
Dr. Stein makes a good point about
out of Ontario.
Dr. Stein makes a very good point about our Pope Leo XIV's health and longevity. It's possible he only makes it 10 years, maybe only 5 years. Who knows? We don't know how.
How old is
goes.
Frank?
Frank Leo is 54. So he may not be the next pope. He may be.
No, he better be the next pope because he's going to be too old to be the 2 popes from now. He's going to be too old for that.
No, it depends on who they elect.
No,
it really depends.
He could be the next pope under a 20-year Leo XIV pontificate.
Yes,
that puts him in his 70s.
And he could be if Pope Leo,
which puts him in that sweet spot.
Yeah, and if Pope Leo's pontificate and the one after him take a grand total of 15 to 20 years, Cardinal Frank Leo could still be eminently papabile at that point. The point is, he's your Pius XIII.
Nah,
Wow.
I want Tog.
No. I'm saying he will take the name Pius XIII when he's elected pope.
Give me Togle.
Will he be
Togle?
You think Togle is going to take the name Pius XIII?
Stop! Please don't.
No, he'll take the name Francis II, and he'll karaoke his way into the apocalypse, and I'm all here for it.
I'm telling you, it's Cardinal Frank Leo, and he'll take the name Pius XIII.
I hope you're right.
Place your bets now.
Place your bets now.
This is your inside word. I know people.
Penn State Dad says, Jake, they call your area, Buffalo, the Big Flats. So there's that.
Do they really?
That. Yeah. Christopher, that's according to Penn State Dad.
First time I've heard this. You're from Penn State. What do you know about Buffalo?
they have what you
I live
call,
here. I've never heard that phrase in my life.
They have what you call hills in Pennsylvania, Jake. That's the thing. That's the thing. Lynn Pine, KZ2, Nick, Mike James.
Just over the road here, up by the Station of the Cross Studios, is Eastern Hills Mall.
There's a hill.
It's called Eastern
amazing.
Hills Mall. They wouldn't call it that unless it was a hill.
All right, Christopher has a question for Nick Cavazos. It says, does the definition of schism in the new canon law match up with the traditional moral theology definition of schism? And what is it like to sit in the presence of the greatest theologian ever, Joe McClain? That last part may have been paraphrased slightly and added completely.
No, I mean, greatest patristic scholar, Civil War scholar, car mechanic, movie critic. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So,
I'm teasing.
Yeah, no, honestly, like the one who needs to, be more grateful is Jake, because like he works with them. But Jake's
from
like,
your lips to God's ears.
So that's always my issue. But in the context of the SSPX, no, the definition of the 83 code, it's in conformity with Catholic tradition. The only thing is that when you read in a canonical law, this is the definition of schism, or this is a definition of some type of sin or penalty. Of course, that definition can be expanded upon so that you can understand greater knowledge. And that's the thing, is that whenever one actually goes and reads what traditional moral theology is on the subject of schism, the Orthodox fall into the clear example of this. The Orthodox refuse the authority of the Pope because he is the Pope. The SSPX don't refuse the authority of the Pope. They're just disobeying specific orders and commands. And so, in other words, every sin of schism will have the sin of disobedience, but not all disobedience is schism.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Otherwise, my children would be in real trouble. Because every time they disobeyed, we'd be kicking them out.
Yeah, that's
kicking them out of the house.
there's a difference between no, Dad, I won't do that, and you're not my real dad. You know.
Well, what I was told was the police are your parents. Do parents say that anymore? My parents used to say that all the time. Like the police is your mommy and daddy.
Parents nowadays apparently say you are in fact son, a daughter, and we'll go and change your legal name. And we're seeing how well that does.
Insane. We live in such diabolical times. Joe says Philip has the only title that matters, Marine. Well, I did earn the title. That's true. I earned that title, praise be to God, but I didn't do it any justice by the end of my time in the Marine Corps. I was pretty bad. I wasn't a good Marine, but I did earn the title. Glory be to God. Jane says Bishop Williams, in his homily at their confirmation, spoke about the Twin Towers being blown up, not just hit by planes. When he said this, my nephew's uncle, a sponsor, walked out. Many of his family are firemen. My brother had to step in. This is an interesting point. Yeah, I guess there was some conspiratorial theory there by Bishop Williams. Just the other day, I was watching an interview by a guy who was in the Army, and he was actually stationed at the Pentagon. He was at the Pentagon when that plane hit it. Or they brought him in. They brought him in to do the part of the recovery at the Pentagon, and he talked about what he saw. And he had to go through all of these rooms, and they were looking for body parts. They were looking for any sort of classified materials, any equipment. They had to collect everything they possibly could. And he talked about seeing like the bits and parts of the airplane that was smashed into a billion little pieces. And because there's a conspiracy theory that says it wasn't a plane. And he's like, well, I saw the landing gear of the aircraft, the charred landing gear, this giant piece of the aircraft still there. And he talked about it all. I've never been on that conspiratorial tip. I mean, do I believe it was manipulated? Yes. I think that's positive. And I think a lot of people point to one of the minor tower buildings as evidence or whatever. And that's fine and all, but I remember that day incredibly clearly. I remember watching that second plane hit that tower, and I could not. That day will live in my mind for the rest of my life. There's no question about it. In fact, I have a box in the garage, a stack full of newspapers. I just kept buying newspapers day after day after day to get all the headlines, and I kept them in a box. I still have them today. They're sitting in that box. I don't know why I own them. It was that Pearl Harbor moment. And do I believe we've been highly manipulated? Yes. If you can turn off the Niagara Falls, then you can manipulate people into flying airplanes and buildings. It's that easy.
I mean, if birds aren't real, they can do anything with 9/11.
You see what I'm saying? This is my point entirely. Birds aren't real. What's next? We didn't land on the moon? Oh, wait. Hold on. Did I open a can? Patricia Parsons, good morning to you. Dave's June 93, Janice and Honeybee. What was that?
I need to add more bingo things to this list.
We need 9/11 conspiracy on the bingo card.
Yeah, is it too much to say conspiracy theories? Should that be its own, just one box of its own? Is conspiracy theories, or should we specifically?
Conspiracy theory should be its own box.
But should it be specific ones mentioned?
I've listened to you guys for every day for 2 weeks, and I think this is like your first time actually bringing up 11.
Okay.
Wow. You need to get better hobbies if you're listening to us every day for 2 weeks.
His hobby is coming into the chat box and sarcastically praising you, Joe.
Sarcastic? What? Wait, are you saying those aren't facts?
I mean, legitimate. I mean, really praising you, Joe. Like
every one of those is legitimate statements. Yeah. I will die with those statements on my lips as I go into the afterlife.
This is like Joe's the Chuck Norris of middle subscriber count YouTube channels.
Nicholas Cavazos, ora pro nobis.
Oh yeah, I have to put. Did I put Uncanonized Saints on there? I want to make sure.
It was funny the other day because I was like, you guys mentioned Michael Matt, and I made the joke. I was like, Gen Z be like, who is Michael Matt? We love Joe McClain, but it is somewhat true because.
Dang.
Because it's like, and this is no diss to Michael Matt or anything, but it's like, aside from the people who go on pilgrimage with Michael Matt, I know no young Gen Z Catholics who know who Michael Matt is.
Yeah,
it's definitely like a
legit.
generation thing.
It's definitely a generational thing.
Isn't he the most
older ones
positive?
absolutely know who he is. Everyone knows the remnant,
Don't you
of
think
a
he's
certain
like one of
age.
the most positive trads there are? Like he's the most upbeat, positive trad in the media world.
No, Anthony Stein is the most positive trad that I know. He's very, very positive.
I'm just tired most of the time. People think I'm super negative, and I'm like, no, I'm just tired. I need more honey on my diet, apparently.
Apparently, ouch, man! You are obviously not feeling well either because you're giving in to the evil dark side here of sugar. We can't admit that out loud at all ever. Did Joe just sing? No, I chanted, Jane. I chanted. There's not a box that says Joe chants, so I don't think that counts. Low key.
You want to know? You want to know an inside bit of information for Catholic YouTube? If it seems like we are often talking negative things, whenever most of us do good news stories, do you know what happens?
Nobody
watches them.
Yeah.
Nobody watches them.
That's why I sneak them into. I combine them in shows for a reason.
That's why I try to do the same thing now. I can't go, Pope Leo makes great. Well, if I did that, people might watch that one. But if like a priest somewhere basically expelled some gay activists from trying to steal the Eucharist or something from a parish, I don't think anybody would watch that video. Even though that sounds pretty fiery as a subject matter, but
yeah. Well, just the other day, I did a. Go ahead, Nicholas.
I was just gonna say, what you do is you just get an AI to make a bunch of fake sermons from Pope Leo the 14th and start uploading them like crazy with catchy titles, and you'll get like 100K subscribers. I'm convinced that what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make like 10 videos where I'm gonna just take Bishop Lay sermons and like put them in Leo's voice and have everyone just be like, "Oh, so base, so amazing," and I'll be like, "Well, SSPX Bishop for Pope. We'll see what happens."
It's possible.
I have how about this one? Let's do a social experiment. Let's get some. I don't know how to do AI, so otherwise I would do it myself. We've got to find someone to take and clone Cardinal Fernandez's voice and have these be Cardinal Fernandez sermons that are Archbishop Lefebvre's sermons, and just upload those and see what happens.
You're gonna get sued by the Vatican. It's not gonna turn out well. Oh, that would be funny though, wouldn't it? It would be funny, but also bad.
It'd be a funny bit, but I think fooling people is bad all the time.
Yeah,
it'd be great.
It would be. I mean, secretly we want to do that, but man, it'd probably be wrong. It'd probably be wrong to do. Loki says, Joe, it's a concern.
That would be a great segment, though. We should have someone dress up as Fernandez with the mole and everything like that.
Then at least it's sarcastic and more intentional, and we're not trying to actually fool people.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we can get away with it. Maybe that's the way to go.
What I'm hearing is that we just need a Catholic SCTV.
We do. Yeah. I would totally go for that. I think it would be great to have a. We do need comedy. We do need entertainment.
Make Eye of the Tiber great again.
We definitely need that. Mm-hmm. I want to get this comment out from Low Key here. He's brought it up a couple times. He says, it's a concern that the Pope appointees are all from the Gregorian and not the Angelicum, or that other one in Italy. I don't know what the other one in Italy is. The Angelicum, the Gregorian. What's the other one? I don't even know. But is this, Low Key, is this comment you're saying this was made by Father Gerald Murray when he was talking with Raymond Arroyo? It was Gerald Murray who brought this up. Is that what you're saying? Because I thought I saw that earlier. I didn't watch that. I didn't hear what he said, but I can try to get him on next week and maybe we can talk to him about that. Why would he be concerned that it comes from the Gregorian versus the Anglican? Because in my
he has a lot of warrant for it being concerned, because the Gregorian is the Jesuit university that's in Rome.
I know, but the Anglican it doesn't have a great reputation either these days.
No, the Angelicum is a far cry from where. Yeah, it's a far cry from where it used to be. Actually, I have friends who go there in Rome who are of a more traditional mindset, and they'll talk about how they'll send me their curriculum, and it's like their curriculum is just a bunch of books from Ignatius Press, and I'm like, okay, number one, I could just read these myself. I don't see why I have to, travel and live in a foreign country in order to get this education. But then number two, if Ignatius Press is like the best that we have, like, goodness gracious, like, why aren't we going back and actually reading, theological textbooks? It's because these theological textbooks oftentimes are against the agenda that's going on in Rome at the moment.
Shanice, did I say Arroyo wrong? I mean, I'm sick, so my mind is not on straight today. It is what it is. But did I say Arroyo wrong?
Raymond Arroyo.
How did I say it? I thought I said Arroyo. Arroyo. Do I have to say it really like Puss in Boots? Arroyo. Like that? That'd be amazing. Father Murray is also solid. I agree, Christopher. I love the man. I love having him on. He's great. Always tells it like it is. And the fact that he is from the Archdiocese of New York City, it's like he must know where all the bones are buried. How does he keep his job? I don't know, but he does. And I love it. Praise be to God. Cigar Mode. Good morning to you. It says watchability. That's why we love Hitchborn. We love it when Hitchborn is on. Wow. You're slamming my guests now. He shares the worst news, but with a smile and positivity about the faith. That's why Hitchborn is considered eye candy on the show. That's why we have him on. He's got that nice hair. Got that great smile. Looks all polished. Alaric, good morning to you. The Anglican is more decent with Thomas. Yeah, but
that's true.
If you ask what's his name? Its brain doesn't want to work today. Monsignor Gomulka. Thank you. My guardian angel helping out today. Monsignor Gomulka. If you ask him, he'd tell you some horror stories about the Anglican. How do I say that again correctly?
Angelicum.
Thank you. Angelicum.
Yeah,
it's the Angelicum. Anyway, Monsignor Gomulka has bad things to say about it from a priest perspective.
There's warrant for it. I mean, what's so sad about the Angelicum in specific is that when you go and look at their alumni list, you see hundreds of saints, hundreds of people who should be saints that are not saints in the canonized sense, who have written just the greatest works in Thomism, in scholasticism in a general sense, just going back for decades and centuries. It's a phenomenal historic university. And then after the council, it got so bad that my spiritual father, Father Albert, who's a traditional Dominican affiliated with the SSPX, he was going there at the time, and they were teaching that confirmation wasn't even a sacrament. They were teaching that confirmation was just a ceremony where you basically as an adult choose to be Catholic. They were also teaching the heresy of partial the heresy of partial inerrancy, which says that only certain parts of the Bible are inerrant, other parts are filled with errors, etc., etc. Thankfully it's gotten better-ish since the 80s, but it's still a far cry from where it needs to be.
I'm sorry. People are still making fun of the way I said Arroyo. I guess I really obliterated the poor man's name.
I was just talking about Oreos now.
Sorry, I'm just reading the comments. And I'm just like, I am terrible. I'm sorry. Jake, write a note. After the show, have me fired.
Yeah. Oh, man. I wish we were playing bingo today because we were hitting them all.
Can we make burning at the stake great again? Maybe we should do that. Let's just do burning at the stake again.
You're burning your steak?
Yeah, sometimes I do burn the steak, unfortunately. As a carnivore guy.
Did you just admit to liking well-done steak?
Yeah, seriously. Wow,
No, I don't like it.
I think Joe's getting canceled here. I think ACT's finally been canceled.
I'm definitely a kind of slightly pink steak kind of a guy.
Wait a minute. You're in Texas? Aren't you in Texas admitting to? You're in Texas admitting to a well-done steak, and next you're going to admit to steak sauce in Texas,
I know,
right?
what?
No steak sauce. No steak sauce.
Good old Joe A1 McLean. I guess we know what the A in ACT stands for.
All right.
And we're talking about meat on a Friday. This is great.
Steak sauce is for Yankees. Okay, let's just go with that. Steak sauce is for Yankees. I typically put beef tallow, butter, and salt on my steak, and I let it ride just like that. Laura, good morning to you. Says Father Bob, all saints were different as long leads us to Christ. Not sure what that comment was about. Flying Tigers, Dama, good morning to you. Joe, don't make me say things that are going to get me in trouble. I'm obviously not able to speak English this morning.
English.
Douglas says, Joe, get a glass of milk and grab a few Oreos.
Exactly.
Doug, I'm Catholic. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't do
seriously,
that.
Get the original. You got to get the original. Get Hydrox. It's the original.
They were the original.
Yikes.
They were the original.
They were.
Oreo's a ripoff of Hydrox.
Yikes.
Oreo just won the war.
And Oreo's kind of gay,
Kind of gay?
They have
kind of gay?
Where they just have it.
The rainbow version didn't clue that in?
Gomez Oreos I saw recently. I was like, what the heck is going on here? Like,
well, before that, they had Post Malone flavored
What?
Oreos.
Jake, what does Oreos
Does it
have
taste
to
like
do?
tattoo ink?
What does Oreos have to do to be all the way gay and not just kind of gay? Because clearly,
there's a lot of stuff out there that's all the way gay. So like the standard's not the
Oreos
bar
are
is
pretty
really
gay anyway.
yeah.
They're vegan. Oreos are vegan approved. So for any vegans listening, you can eat Oreos and think you're being healthy. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Does Worcestershire pass a steak sauce? Does it pass as a steak sauce?
Just Worcestershire?
Worcestershire
Who would put
sauce.
just Worcestershire on your steak?
And if you're in Massachusetts, is it pronounced Worcestershire or Worcester?
Does have a place. Steak sauce has a place. You know what that place is? If you were given a badly cooked steak, a badly cooked low quality steak, and
It's
you're going to
your
be
safety
polite
net? Is that
and
what
choke
that
it
is?
down, basically to choke the thing down.
Honestly, yeah, that's fair. I mean, if you're not in my book, if you're not the max is medium rare. That's the max that you cook it. If you go more than that, you just haram, and you're no longer a good Muslim. So,
ouch, dang. Well, friends don't let friends eat anything but pork on Fridays.
Friends don't let friends. What is this 2012 memes here? Come on, Jake, you gotta liven the show up a little bit.
Hey, I've been trying. It's like paddling up Niagara Falls some days. Like, trust me.
Which I think you can do. Apparently, I bet that's a thing. I bet they sell tickets.
Well, that's
to
why they
paddle
turn
up
it. That's
Niagara
why they
Falls.
turn it off so you can have an
Like
easier time.
anything the tourists want, we can do here because it's all one tourist scam. I'm pretty sure that if you look hard enough, you'll find a Disney World sign somewhere around Niagara Falls because it's all fake. Low Key says, Joe, please ask Dr. Stein, what does he think will be the societal effect of these continued trans violence? FYI, certain people think deep state will try to continue to trigger these people to commit violence. I think that's also part of what's got to be discovered in this. I know that there are several people online who are sort of speculating along these lines. That was this kid. We still don't know. It's never been answered. What about the shooter in Pennsylvania, Butler, PA? Was it ever answered definitively whether or not he was in these chat boxes that a lot of these feds hang out in?
About him.
Right.
We know nothing
Still to this
about
day.
him.
Nothing.
Including him having mysterious phone calls with people. There's a lot of weird evidence. And recently, I've been really wanting to embrace the idea that our government is too incompetent to pull off these mass conspiracies. But then I remember Butler. And that one glows in the dark so brightly that the International Space Station is calling to tell us to turn the lights off. Okay. That's how brightly that glows. It's so suspicious. So obvious. Do I think government officials are the ones pushing this stuff and like the trans stuff, like what you saw happen at that school? Not necessarily. I mean, maybe in some cases, but not necessarily in every case. Some people just don't need the help.
Some people are
being
just
pushed,
degenerate.
Where did he get the guns from? If we don't get an answer to that question, then you have every right to ask hard questions. But if, a kid comes from a house where the father is known to collect firearms and he uses one for it in an evil purpose, you don't have to ask the question where he got the gun from. But in this case, we need to know. That's why we need to know what the mother's doing, why she's not cooperating with police. But what's the societal impact going to be? I mean, the culture's already turned against them. Shooting up a school isn't exactly going to, help with their cause any. Oh, suddenly you murdered a bunch of innocent people. I'm going to now sympathize with your cause. It's not rocket science. This is the more they push, the worse it's going to be. And it's interesting watching the political left double and triple down, like coming out against prayers now. Yeah. They were literally praying, making the same argument that the kid had on his written on his gun, "Where is your God?" Well, the mayor of Minneapolis said the same thing basically when he said, "Well, they were praying when they were all shot." So again, they're doing the work of decent people for us by opening their mouth and just running their mouth. They're going to pay a consequence for this. Let's just hope that we can use this opportunity that's presented itself to maybe get the sane legislation passed about transgender issues, the medicine that they're given, the social contagion that it is, some solution to this. But the real solution is, of course, the gospel. You're not going to solve a demonic issue without the gospel in there somewhere. You have to have people are looking for a material solution to a spiritual problem. And there's only so much you can do on the material side.
Did you see what he wrote on the shotgun? On the side of the barrel of the shotgun? Take this, all of you.
Where's your God?
Eat.
Take and eat. Yeah.
Like, that's demonic.
He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was
definitely
doing.
And some people are just, I think that's the other issue is, I don't think we can wrap our head around the level of evil in the world around us. When we see this stuff, we can't wrap our heads around it. So we automatically start thinking of things like MK Ultra or whatever. And not that MK Ultra is real. It did exist. It did happen. And maybe it's still happening today. But there are people who are just degenerate. There's just a level of degeneracy in society that exists normally.
And we're not talking about people who are, when we we use that word, we're not calling someone who goes to confession because they've got some pretty bad habitual sins that are kind of especially kind of impure in nature. We're not talking about that. Degeneracy is where you take those things or related things and you celebrate them. These are not only not a problem, these are good. Everybody should do this stuff, and you are the bad person for resisting this. That's what a degenerate is. They not only live a sinful lifestyle, they celebrate it, don't see a problem with it, and think you're the bad person, that you're the oppressor for denying them their access to fill in the blank, whatever their issue is. The society we live in.
Napoleon, I always add more beef tallow to the steak, even though it comes with its own. Because more beef tallow is always good beef tallow. Okay, more is better. More is better.
If you're going to have that, why don't you just make a hollandaise sauce? It's Friday. You're probably going to have fish today. You can serve it with fish. It makes it actually fish edible, as far as I'm concerned. If it's not I'm from the Pacific Northwest. If it's not fresh caught like that day, then
you can't get it down here. Forget it. You can't get
so if you're going to eat that, if you're going to eat fish here that's not from the Gulf, make a hollandaise sauce, which is egg yolk and butter, which is like 2 carnivore superfoods, and you're putting it on something barely edible, so it makes it edible, which is good.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a good way to go. Christine asked a question: can anyone tell me which book would be the best for Catholic dads that don't practice their Catholic faith? I have a few young dads so clued out worldly, it is breaking my heart for them and their children. All right, let's start with Nicholas Cavazos. What books would you recommend to the secular Catholic dad?
The Bible, number one, which is
that's a library. That's not a book, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, what's cool is you get a library in a book, which is pretty epic because you don't get that with other books. But in general, I would say if it's about just formation, our mutual friend Kennedy Hall's work, Terror of Demons, right, which is a book on recovering Catholic masculinity through the lens of St. Joseph. That's a phenomenal book. I believe it's Tan that puts that out. Definitely check that work out. And then, though this one isn't per se for dads, a book that I would recommend just in general, because we're talking about like young people doing stupid stuff, for all of the moms out there or dads, a good book to give your sons is a book called The Young Man's Guide by Father Lassans, which is a book of it's a book of prayers, but it's also a book of just formation that teaches you how to be a man as if you were a man 100 years ago, i.e. a man of how every man was before kind of just this modern age of degeneracy. And so,
a man from a normal time.
Exactly.
From a normal time.
I disagree on a book being your solution.
Me too.
These are people who need someone in their life to talk to them, because if they're not taking their Catholic faith seriously, handing them Kennedy Hall's book or the Father Lassans book, they're not going to read it. They're not taking their faith seriously. So they need somebody in their life to talk to them. Mm-hmm. That's handing them a book's not going to be your solution. They need peer pressure.
Possibly listening to something may prompt something.
That, or unless you're talking about a book to like forcibly drop on them physically.
Exactly. Yeah. In which case the Bible works because it's so heavy, you know?
Yeah.
Put the thump in Bible thumping and give them a thump over the head.
The Scott Hahn Didache edition of the Bible, so you can just forcibly drop it on them.
Yeah.
But otherwise they need someone to talk to.
Yeah. They need to at the very least, they need to hear something, you know? They're not. That was my first instinct. Was they're probably not going to read a book, even though these are great. Like those would be excellent for. Obviously, the Young Man's Guide is great for a younger kid. I think that's good for a younger boy, you know, who does already read something. You know,
it takes the faith reasonably seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll probably be good for him.
But just for most people, picking up a book and reading it isn't going to suddenly shock their system. Much as I think those are good book recommendations If they are people who read, maybe it's just a matter of, maybe if they're just kind of lukewarm and they still do read things, maybe giving them like, hey, this, but it'll take someone talking to them to say, hey, you should check this out, give it a read and tell me what you think type of thing, and kind of hold them accountable to doing that. That could work.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Men,
but, yeah.
Men also, when you're young, you run in your bachelor groups, right? Deer do this too. They behave in this way too. Just before the mating season begins, bucks always team up into groups and they move as a group. And then as you get into the rut, they spread out into individuals. Humans act in similar ways. When they're young, they get into these bachelor groups. It's very much by nature. Your peer group can make or break you. So that's one of the things I was just talking to my one of my sons yesterday about this, and it's something I've had many conversations with my teenagers about. Your peer group can make or break you. So when you're young and you're impressionable and you get into a peer group at work or at college or at school or some other place, and that peer group is toxic, okay, that's a red flag. This is part of the reason why Robert shot up a mass the other day in Minneapolis, because his peer group might have been pressure from his parents, his mom, could have been pressure from his LGBTQ Rainbow Coalition. I haven't the slightest clue, but I guarantee that peer group played a big role in all of this. He even talks about it in his manifesto about, I hate this, but I can't cut my hair because I'll get reported. Reported to whom? Who's going to report you, and who are they reporting to? Like, he's sort of insinuating that there's peer group here is going to have high pressure, so he has to toe the line because it would look like a defeat. That's what he said in his manifesto. So peer groups make or break. So if you got a young man, a dad, who's living very secular life and not Catholic, that peer group's going to make a difference for him. Maybe his peer group is very toxic at work or whatever. I know when I had my mystical encounter with Jesus in 2005, and I would my peer group was very toxic. There were a bunch of guys that like to drink too much, smoke weed too much, get into fights too much, and all the rest. That peer group is incredibly toxic. You got to find a way for these men to plug in. So at the parish, maybe there's a men's group, a Bible study, Exodus 90. There's a lot of opportunities, and a lot of them are imperfect in many, many ways. But something is better than nothing in moving somebody from negative to positive. So that'd be the big recommendation, is maybe there's a retreat, maybe there's a men's conference. Even if it's not the best option, maybe there's lots of issues with some of that stuff. Like, I don't love Acts retreats. I just don't. But that might be. I
never saw an Acts retreat till I moved to Oklahoma. I never saw one.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what they were. And
I did Curial. I've been on a billion different retreats, men's retreats. I've led some. I've been on teams on a bunch. I've attended a bunch. I mean, they all have their faults, and they all and some of them and have even some great things that you can say about them. But there might be a spark in there that moves somebody from this darkness and towards the light, and I think that would be great. So I would definitely recommend that. And then when they get interested, as Deborah points out earlier, they got to want to change before they want to read, and I would agree with that. A man ain't going to read. He's just not going to read. He's not. Here, why don't you read this? Yeah, I'll get right on that, and they never do.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe they'll listen.
I do this with books I buy for myself, by the way.
So men don't like to read, even if they are interested. But maybe they'll listen. You send them a podcast. Yep. You send them a recording of a talk someone gave. And there's some great ones out there that are help put that spark in men's life. But I find that conversion, when someone's secular and they're not even considering like living a faithful life, then you send them a conversion story, because that is a story that can catch their interest rather than a polemical talk that they're going to feel being preached at. Mm-hmm. So you send them a story where someone's sharing their own conversion story. And there's there's so many out there that you can choose from, but get a guy telling his story about that conversion experience that might spark an interest, and then you can start sharing some books. I like the Kennedy Hall book personally. I think it's great. I would also recommend what's his name? I'm trying to think. Friday, my brain doesn't want to work. I can see his face in my mind, but his name is escaping me. He's got like I'm going to come up with the title and I'll put it in the chat or something. But there's another book out there. I want to recommend it, but I can't.
I was going to suggest if in the context of retreats, Like, because the original question said they were fairly lukewarm. It was just a lukewarm Catholic dad. In my personal opinion, the best retreat that one could possibly go to for a Catholic, it's a big claim, but I'll make that claim. Oh, okay. Is the SSPX Ignatian retreat. If you go to an SSPX Ignatian retreat, which is, done in the old way, it will kick you into high gear. There was about 60 of us, I think it was, who went at Sanctus Ranch. We recently did ours. And let's just say it's like a 5-day long silent retreat. By the end of day 2, all of us were like, how can any of us go to heaven? We're like, hell is real. We're all going to hell. And then by the end of it, we were like, okay, God actually has a plan for salvation. And I saw some individuals who I got to meet kind of before the retreat who were kind of fairly lukewarm, really just get kicked into high gear, which is pretty cool, because a lot of the chaplains that do it are, they're men's men in the SSPX. They didn't go to the fruitcake seminary, and so that might help the individual.
12 Rules for Manliness by Bear Wozniak. That was the other book I wanted to recommend. 12 Rules for Manliness. I like this book because a secular man might relate to this book quicker. It's gonna warm them a little bit. It's not gonna be from like hot to cold. It's not gonna be that high of a contrast. It's gonna warm them. It's gonna relate to them in a way in a language that they may be more open to. And then it's also going to challenge them a little bit. So I like it. 12 Rules for Manliness by Bear Wozniak. That was the name I was trying to remember. By the way, Janice, I am looking at putting together a men's retreat. The plan that I'm looking at right now is going to be an outdoor wilderness men's retreat where we hike and camp on a mountain range on the ridge line for 3 days, 3 nights. And we're going to bring a trad priest with us. So we have daily mass. We'll also have opportunities at confession and get spiritual reflection. We'll do the divine office as well, but obviously not the mass. We'll wake up and have mass, and then we'll get on the hike that day. It's going to be a long hike. So we're talking probably 40-ish miles, somewhere in that neighborhood total of hiking and camping. And all of the talks. So we want to do the divine office and the talks while we're hiking. That's the plan. So I'm trying to put it together. I reached out to Father Brancich yesterday, one of my favorite Ask a Priest live priests based out of Nashua, New Hampshire, because one of the locations I'm thinking about is the Pemi Loop in New Hampshire. And it's only about an hour and a half total from the Manchester airport. So that's not bad. It's an easy airport to get in and out of. I could drive up there with my 15 passenger, pick up the guys and haul them north. And Father Branson said he would come along for the ride. He would come along with us to say mass for us and hear our confessions. So that's one option. I'm also looking at the Eagle Loop in Arkansas. That's another option, which is nice because I can drive there from my house in 6 hours, 6.5 hours, be there. And I could probably bring Father Alloy with me, who is also Ask a Priest live fame, and do that. But I don't know. I'm on the fence, and I'm still thinking about it and planning it, and we're thinking about Lent of 2026. So that's what I'm thinking about for a men's retreat. Could be a great opportunity. As I put the details together, I'll let you know. But I want it to be hard. That's my thing. I want to personally be really challenged by it, and I'm looking. And one of the main themes that I think I would love to see the spiritual reflection come from like the priest that comes with, is perseverance. I think as men, we need to be told and reminded that we must persevere through difficulty. How many times have I run into resistance in life and just felt I want to throw my hands up and quit? Personally, I can tell you I've experienced that a lot. And there's a real temptation to not push through difficulty. And I would love to see that being one of the main themes is perseverance. So we'll see. I'm working on all that. Joe, will you serve coffee? Napoleon, that's a fantastic question. Of course, the answer is yes. We're going to be backpacking it, so we will obviously have provisions. Every man, that's the challenge, right? A man who shows up to this is going to have to come showed prepared. He's got to be able to walk some 40-some miles up an incline. He's got to be able to endure the epic awesomeness of vista views across a mountain range. without his heart bursting in joy for God's creation. He's got to be able to manage that, emotion. He's also got to be able to carry his own water and his own food. But we will have coffee.
And his own
his own what?
His own creatine as well.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have God's good juice in powder. So coffee and creatine are definitely on the agenda. Do you do creatine at all, Dr. Stein?
Yeah, creatine is good.
How much
It
do you
helps
take?
with cup? I think it's 4 capsules, which is like
You
5
take
milligrams
capsules
or something.
I take 20 grams a day.
Why?
Grams a day.
Because I'm trying to juice the brain. Ask me how that's working out.
Okay. Are you consuming red meat because you're on a carnivore adjacent diet? So are you consuming red meat a day?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How much are you doing a day? 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds a day?
1.5 pounds, easy. Yeah.
I could just look up for you how much creatine is in red meat. So red meat contains 300 to 500 milligrams of creatine per 100 grams. So if you're at 1.5 pounds, you are consuming 700, we'll say, grams, which means you're getting anywhere up to 1,500 milligrams. Well, we'll split the difference. We'll say 1,000 milligrams of creatine just from your red meat. So why are you adding 20 grams on top of that?
Because they say
most of the really hardline carnivores. From what I understand
is.
Do you watch Dr. Sean Baker or any of the carnivore doctors? Because most of them will tell you not to take supplements, except for maybe creatine for the gym.
So the reason why I'm taking creatine is mostly for the brain. But from what I understand is the creatine, the supplement you take, the muscles sort of take priority. They're like the first in line to say, we want that. Mm-hmm. And so they take all they want until they get their fill. And then what's left over can go to places like the brain. So the theory is,
or you pee it out, like any other supplement.
The theory is you take more than you need to get past that phase, so that your brain can start to get benefits from it. This
is why I suspect you're getting what you need for the brain, but between a little bit of the supplementation and then eating 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of red meat a day. That's
so
my
you're
suspicion.
saying I could easily cut back to say 5 or 10 grams and be okay.
Yeah. If you start noticing a difference that you're foggy headed, not because you haven't had your coffee or whatever. I need more caffeine. That's why I'm not on my best right now.
I don't think caffeine helps me all that much cognitively, to be honest with you. In fact,
you're not taking enough of it then.
Yeah, you're right. I never have enough coffee. In fact, before the show starts, I only drink about this much coffee, and then I switch to water to hydrate. And I usually do electrolytes too, just to kind of.
I do electrolytes. I've got a couple
Parsons.
cases of electrolytes 10 feet from where I'm sitting right now.
So Patricia asks, so what about Nick? Everybody's praising him, but that's perfectly fine. I think Dr. Stein should clear that up as well. Clear what? What are we talking about?
I'm not even sure what her point is.
I think the real question about, so what about Nick, that really is that nobody, no Catholic media outlets are talking about this. None. And there are no secular outlets. There are no Catholic media, no Catholic podcasters. Dr. Taylor Marshall isn't even talking about this. It needs to be talked about.
Uh-oh.
Nicholas.
Here it comes.
When are you going to find a girl to get married?
Gonna find a girl probably when, the third temple is built and everything.
I knew it. He lives too close to Ted Cruz. That's the problem.
So true. Honestly, the issue with young people and dating, it's just dumb. I mean, honestly, and it's both in Catholic circles and in secular circles. It's the same issues, which is that the two genders right now are the farthest apart politically that we've ever been, and because of that, as well as a lot of things like expectations that are now being put forward. Expectations that are rational, of course, are fine. I'm not talking about that. But the kind of irrational expectations of, a guy has to be making 7 figures in order for me to ask him, for him to ask me out. That kind of toxic culture that has, spewed all over TikTok has really infected the minds of a lot of people. And so, unfortunately, it's infected the minds of a lot of Catholic women out there. It's like, I'd love to just go to a parish and ask a girl out, but I've been doing that for the last 5 years, and it's kind of the same story over and over again, which is, they want the man of God, and then when men who are trying to strive for virtue show up, it's like, well, you're not those 6'3", you're not making 7 figures. It's kind of
You're not 6'3"?
Like,
wait, hold on. How tall
Well,
are
you should tell them that you should tell them that you are a world famous Catholic YouTuber, and as such, you make like 9 figures. That's what everybody thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so true.
Got to get that Trad Inc. money that I hear so much about. Yeah.
The SSPX influencers, we are the most wealthy of all Catholic media outlets. People know,
true.
but
it's
those S's are actually dollar signs.
That's exactly
so
right.
true. So true. But that's the issue, really. And so,
it's funny because I hear like the other side of this equation a lot with the young folk at our parish, to include my oldest daughter, and they're like, they complain about how the guys don't have it all together, and there's not enough in the community, quality in the community to choose from, because the guys don't they're not approaching, they're not asking, they're not, so it's funny for me to hear like, so both sides of that argument. It sounds like there needs to be great opportunities made for good, wholesome Catholic young men and good, wholesome Catholic young women who want to pursue the vocation of marriage, to find opportunities to meet, to get to know each other, and to have that dialogue, to have that,
That's only part of the problem, though. Because, as Nick was explaining, there's basically just fewer and fewer women who are interested in meeting young men and settling down.
That's what my daughter says about men.
Yeah. Well, the stats back up that it's the men are more, conservative and the women are more liberal. That's what the stats back up.
Reach, Jake. Yeah, because this is the issue. There, of course, is issues on both sides of this spectrum.
100%.
It's not
100%.
It's not obviously just one side. The problem, though, is that when we actually look at the issue, is that women, for the most part, have been so influenced by just a kind of toxic feminism that what has kind of just come forth from this is an irrational expectation and also a weird societal beatdown of men. And so I will be the first to admit that young men in my generation, on the one hand, need to get a grip. It's like there was a stat that came out. There was a stat that came out like 2-3 weeks ago, I forget, but it said that something like 77% of Gen Zers took their parents with them to like a job interview. Like, that's retarded. Like,
exactly. Like,
that's amazing. Wow.
And
is there a box for Nicholas hates Gen Z? Yeah, I'm just curious.
Now, do you mean they took them to a job interview, like they gave them a ride, or they sat in the waiting room?
No, they walked them through it.
Brought them into the interview to help walk them
heard
through
this
it. Now,
before.
I've never witnessed this amongst my friends, but I mean, I guess it's out there. On the other end of the spectrum, though, Gen Z is pretty based in some areas that the boomers are not comfortable about talking about. Which
boy,
we won't
here we go.
Here. Which Jake is probably the most based person on this. But
well, thank you.
But yeah, when it comes to dating, it's a nightmare because this is where I'm kind of at. Young men, we're constantly being told the line of, get a job, get off of the internet, get off the video
your parents'
games,
basement.
All that I agree with. All of that I agree with. Nothing wrong with that. But then when all of the men do that, and the women are still saying no, it's pretty crazy. Like I won't spill the beans, but it's like recently I got a new job, right? It's a pretty good job. I'm making over 6 figures, right? I have the ability to live wherever I want. It's going to be doing the stuff that I like to do, etc. Still not good enough in the eyes of many, quote, Catholic women that are out there, because 6 figures is great.
Ladies.
My lifestyle should be 7 figures, and it's just crazy stuff. No, I'm not talking the wrong ladies. Ask your average guy at a traditional Catholic parish his experience, and he will tell you the exact same story. That's why I said the other day about Jake, I said Jake is a miracle case, because he's like citing all of this stuff that nobody, including me, knows, which is pretty rare, and he's still getting married. So I'm like, Jake, hit me up. What are your tips?
Well, I'm a miracle case myself. I found my wife on Catholic Match, my future wife on Catholic Match. Like,
how did
and she was
the lottery?
I know exactly. I know for a fact that my case is pretty unique. Although I know 2 other Catholic Match successes, but they're, fairly, one's a member of my family and the other one's a good friend of mine from my parish, and he's kind of in a similar situation to me. So these are unique cases. Like, odds are you're not going to find someone on Catholic Match, although it doesn't hurt to have one on there just in case. My fiance was on there for 6 years before she found me.
What about trad Catholic matchmaking?
The thing is, matchmaking, people have this Hollywood idea of matchmaking and arranged marriages, and that's not really how the vast majority of people got married in that way. The vast majority of Catholics historically did not get married like, like the king arranged with the other king for their daughters and their son to be betrothed, at 5 years old or whatever. Like, most people married pretty much who they wanted, but the issue was that you actually had social structures in place and there were societal rules in place, and women weren't counting on being able to just get carried along by society and the government for whatever they want. To have to have a choice in a man. Like, either you got married or you were an old maid at home, or you went into a convent if you had a vocation. But like, those were your choices. You either got married or you were an old maid living at home with your parents. Like, that's not the choice that young women have now. Young women don't have to get married because they know that society, and this is not saying that they're making this conscious choice, but subconsciously they know, and they've been told from the ground up that, they can do anything they want and they don't need no man. And a lot of Catholic women still have this cultural sort of vibe possessing them, essentially, where they know that, they can still keep on doing things. Like, they don't have to settle. They don't have to settle. They don't have to settle for this guy, because there might be that one later on. So even a lot of ostensibly traditional Catholic girls still have this mindset. And it's really hard to break out of, because basically society is there for them. The societal expectation of you can be a girl boss, you can have it all, is still there for them, and it's very, very tempting for young women. I have a lot of sympathy for them, because a lot of them will not admit that this is the case, because they're not thinking of it that consciously. They're just doing this, and then they're going to end up unhappy.
I'm
but
just
basically,
glad I don't have to do this.
I know.
Glad
you should.
I'm married 25 years. Praise be to God. 6 kids, 3 grandkids.
Time.
Yeah,
I don't have to do this. I'm so happy that I don't have to deal with this.
Yeah.
anymore.
So it's about basically you're stuck. Not being able to make that next step. And yes, opportunities for young men and women to meet is super important, because that's what it used to be back in the day. You used to have social events. People weren't stuck inside all the time, unless they were just weird, odd bookworms who just never left. And when you went out, if you were someone who, maybe wasn't the most confident socially or whatever, there was a whole list of rules that you could just follow in order to be able to talk to people and in order to be able to dance with people. So that 2 people who, maybe weren't the best, socially, and a man may not be that great at like going and approaching someone, out of the blue. You had social situations with social rules in place where you kind of just could get carried along to meet someone, and then you would settle down and get married. Like, basically, society has collapsed so far, everyone is swimming upstream. And the issue we're running into now is that young men are kind of rebelling against the stream of society more and more. Not all of them perfectly. A lot of them are still stuck in this just complete, permanent childhood mindset. But enough of them are breaking off that they're kind of helping to lead some others along with them, which is why we're seeing this split, because society is carrying along all the girls into the other direction. And that's why and the stats are backing this up with political opinions of the younger generation.
It's really too bad we're not playing ACT bingo, because triggering Jake was one of the boxes, and that would have qualified.
Yeah, but Nick did it,
honestly,
so.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just saying, Jake is talking about one of the most relevant issues right now, that's out there. I mean, he's hitting the cutting edge news of the social commentary, because it's true. I mean, there were stats that came out last week that talked about how even since the 2024 election, the Gen Z male population has continued to swing right. And Trump's biggest critics right now are from the young right-wing men who say he's not conservative enough. Yeah. He needs to go further.
That's because he's a moderate Republican. That's why he's just got a brash attitude.
No,
exactly.
And he says what he says, what a lot of people are thinking, which isn't always a good thing. Yeah. That makes people think he's super right wing.
Yeah, we just haven't seen this though when it comes to stats for a young generation. Like what's so interesting is that when you pair up all the generations and you can say, where are you on the right to left scale? It's very interesting, the fact that the boomers are pretty much split 50-50. Like, the boomers have gotten more progressive, I think, as kind of a reaction to seeing the young right wing grow up. The millennials and Gen Xers are still fairly, at least statistically, tied, in the sense that, it's like 10 points either way, depending on the gender gap. But then when it comes to Gen Z, it's like 60% hardcore right, and then like 60% hardcore left. And the reason for this is because if you grow up in a society,
but that can't be true at your trad parish, though.
No, it's still true, because this is the thing. All the young ladies go to the Novus Ordo. All of the young men go to the TLM.
There's got to be young ladies at your trad parish. There has to be. There's young ladies at our trad parish.
There's more young men than there are young ladies at mine.
Well, that may be true.
Yeah, I was like, there is not obviously universally, but the vast majority of times in the Catholic context, women are going to go to the new order of Mass. Men are going to go to the TLM if they know about it, right? And because of that, that's kind of the Catholic manifestation of this. But on a societal level, even if you're a Catholic female, a lot of them have been influenced still by hardcore feminism in some form or fashion. And so because of this, we're seeing this massive issue. And the reason that this is such an issue is because when we look at the birth rates in the U.S., they are plummeting. And when the boomers die off, this society is going to have, we're going to have a massive issue in the United States of America when the boomers die off, because there's not enough Gen Z people to take on the burden of all of that. And that's part of the reason why they're shipping so many millions of illegals into the country, because they know, economically speaking, they won't keep their powerhouse.
It's not sustainable.
But that's why young men are turning right wing, because it's like, if you grow up and you're being told you're white, that means you're evil. You're male, that means you're evil. You're Christian, that means you're evil. Okay, well, guess what? All of us are going to go and we're going to embrace all three of those things, and we don't care anymore.
You keep calling us fascist, and you make everything that we like fascist. That means fascism must actually be good.
Yeah, exactly. that's the mindset.
Literally, a priest told a friend of mine recently. He said that at his parish, the young women are coming into the parish and they're in the confessionals, and I can at least divulge this part. They're saying, I wish that there was all these good, men out there that really loved God, but all these men out there, they're all just like, they love Mussolini, and they're all just, they're all just so right wing. And I'm just chuckling, because I'm like, this is what you get, left-wing culture. You pushed young men so far that now they're flying off and they're saying that Mustache Man is great. Yeah. I'm not, but I'm just saying the point is that you've driven them so far.
Yeah,
that's what you get.
Yeah, if you don't accept the moderate options, you're going to get the radical options. Like that's what's going to happen.
What's that? There's this Gen Z saying that I see online once in a while: "May your memes become dreams," or something like that. And this is what they've done. They've essentially made people just jokingly saying, that Austrian painter was cool, to making guys actually consider some of his finer arguments, and that's a problem. There really is. And it's because the culture has pushed so hard to the left.
Well, the other meme I've seen is that you go up to someone who this tweet was basically saying, like, okay, you go up to someone who is protesting for a left wing cause, and they're protesting everything that you are. They're protesting that you're white, that you're male, that you're Christian, that you're Catholic, that you believe there are only two sexes, that you all this sort of thing. And you go and you ask them, okay, well, could you sum up in one word what it is you're opposed to? And then they'll say, Nazi. And you're like, well, okay. You know, like that's the issue. That is what leftist propaganda is doing, is they're convincing everyone that the answer clearly must be fascists and Nazis, you know, and that's the only option to fight back because that's the ultimate, you know, summation of what the leftists hate. And what we can see that they hate is, you know, actually, you know, the Catholic Church, you know, God, you know, European culture, Western civilization, all these things. But the problem is they're summing that all up as, you know, Nazis. Okay, well, I guess, well, we all have to be Nazis then. That's the problem with this, is you're not getting those, you know, if you're not going to accept, you know, the next Franco, you're going to get much, much worse than Franco.
Yeah,
that's basically it.
Loves Our Lady. Good morning to you. Thanks for being on the team today. Says, marry young and live a Catholic life. God will provide you with the financial abilities to take care of your family. Yeah, I would agree.
It's all well and
you
good.
do want to marry young. I think you should marry when you are younger. In your 20s would be great because it's really hard. It's really hard to plow through, you know, all the stuff in life that you have to plow through, and you need that young vigorousness to kind of do some of that. But I think the issue is obviously the pool, the gene pool that they're trying to fish in is part of the problem.
Yeah, and Napoleon Solo, you're right.
Thing I've noticed.
You go ahead.
There's another thing I've noticed too, though, and it's a lot of young women saying, and I've seen there's a version of young men doing this too. Young men are not innocent of this either, but they say they want men who don't go to confession for certain sins. They don't want young men who have certain issues that they deal with related to purity and things, and totally understandable. And that knocks 90% of available men out of the dating pool. What they're wanting are essentially men who are like half a step from being saints. And on paper, I totally understand where they're coming from. But we lived in probably the most depraved age in human history. To have a man who deals with those sins and still goes to confession for them and is earnestly trying to deal with them and get rid of them puts them light years ahead of most of the men in the dating pool already. Everyone right now in the church, it seems, among younger people are on the fast track to convincing themselves about that they have a calling to the single life, you know, in 20 years when they can't find somebody because they have adopted standards that are weird, frankly, strange standards, especially considering, I'm going to be blunt here, most people have something they go to confession for. That any confessor will tell you that the typical person has 2 or 3 sins that they go to confession for all the time. And they vary person to person. But, you know, if you're holding someone to basically being the next coming of St. Francis of Assisi as your potential husband, then you might be in for a world of hurt and a world of loneliness.
Yep.
You may have turned away a decent young man.
And the thing to ask about is, and there was a great document shared I saw recently, I think I tried to share it in the ACT Insider Chat, that basically said, and this is correct, that social media for young women pretty much fills the same role that pornography does for men. So any young girl who's like, well, I want a man who's, you know, completely pure, never been, you know, never struggled with pornography, never has to confess, you know, has had to confess that sin or whatever. Well, okay, now show me your social media accounts. You know, that's the thing. And there's no sense of that being equivalent for a lot of young women. They're like, no, because this is where I see this and where I see that. You know, this is where I see my friends post their mass fit pics and stuff like that. That can't be bad, right? Okay. You know, this is the issue, is there's an imbalance, and this is part of the societal imbalance of expectations for young men and fathers. Like, compare your Father's Day homily to your Mother's Day homily. Like, that can sum a lot of this up.
It's so true. It's so true. It is nuts. It is nuts seeing the light and day difference between how like the church treats men and women, because it is true. If you go to a Mother's Day service, I remember this as a Protestant too. Like at my Protestant quote unquote church, they would hand out like roses and flowers to the moms and stuff for Mother's Day, and they're like, "Oh, thank you so much. All the mothers stand. You know, let's give them a round of applause." Yeah. And then the men's sermon is basically like, "You must be pure. All of your children are just going to be horrible people unless you get your act together, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." It's like, okay, look. Yes, that is true.
Sure, of course.
But
it's also true of the mothers, though.
Yeah, you couldn't have said something like, hey, 85% of divorces are initiated by women. What's in it for men? That's a good, decent question.
Yep.
I hate the fact that we have a society and the conservatives have completely given up on this issue, that have embraced no-fault divorce. Because what it has done is it has made a society in which, for women, they can divorce for any reason, including transing your children. They can take a fair amount of your money with you, and they can get off scot-free. And they'll also have the backing of the vast majority of courts, the vast majority also of public opinion.
And by the way, it does go both ways on that issue, because I've had guests on the show, women who have been victims of no fault divorce themselves. So it does work badly in both ways.
Yeah, no one's saying it isn't.
Yeah, I know, but I just wanted to make it clear, because it's not just men are the victims there. Marriages are the victims there. The kids are the victims there.
Sure, but the point is the stats say 95%.
Hold on. At the end of the day, please, let me finish. At the end of the day, no fault divorce is evil and has to go.
Yes.
It's evil and has to go.
100%. And again, the thing that we're drawing issue to, that, and this is the problem, is that it can't be said without people saying, well, what about? Okay, 95% or whatever it was of them are initiated by the women. How many, remember, what's the percentage of abortions that are elective, where the woman said, no, I'm going to go kill my baby? And then, but what about all these cases where, it's a teenage girl and she's raped by someone and then she didn't make the choice and then she's bullied into it? Okay, but what about the 90% that are initiated by women? No, but a man is involved in every abortion or whatever. What about the 90% where the woman went there and signed, no contest? I'm just doing this because I don't want a baby. My birth control didn't work. This is the issue, is that there's always this, but what about all these examples where men are evil? Yeah, but the stats say that this is the case with the vast majority, is that women are initiating it. But what about the stats where what about the cases where men are evil? I'm not pointing this at you, Joe, because you bring up a good point. It's evil no matter what. We need to just get rid of no-fault divorce no matter what. The problem is that there's this fear of dealing with the actual stats on the issue with the sex divide. So that's the problem.
Well, I don't think you have to. I just think you just throw it away. The whole thing needs to be
addressed. Saying, but the problem is having this discussion and realizing that sometimes the problem is a woman problem. That is the issue. It's like that post I shared in the chat about the screenshot which triggered everyone, said that there's two ways out of this mess. One is with blood spilled, continents destroyed, millions and billions dead. The other path is just kind of being mean sometimes and sometimes saying no to women. And then I got women in there saying, so you're blaming women for all the problems in the world? Like, the post is literally about what men have to do. Men just have to man up and be men and be masculine and sometimes just say, no, we need to do the right thing. I don't care what you want. But, it's apparently offensive to say that.
I wanted to read a few comments before we say goodbye today, because we're way over, super long today. We'll be here all day if we let Jake continue to be triggered.
Exactly.
El Papista, did I say that right? El Papista, I've never seen you in the chat box. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for hanging out. Says, I found a wife until I stopped looking. What I wanted and dared to say to God to give me what he wanted for me. I got married when I was 31. We just celebrated our 15th anniversary. Congratulations. Praise be to God. Glad you're on the team. We'll be continuing to pray for your.
He's how old?
He got married at 31 and he's now 15. This is like going back to grade school with a word problem. I always hated those. Train A leaves the station at 6:15. Stop it! I don't want to do this anymore. So you'd have to do some math, but 15 plus 31, that's where he's at.
But before we wrap this up, gentlemen, I have something I'm emailing to Jacob right now. We need to show this
further.
And this will bring, I think, everybody together.
Okay, while you're doing that, let me just read this. I wanted to read this other one. Deborah says, my daughter married a non-Catholic who promised to finish RCA, but didn't. Their kids in public school, and nobody goes to mass. They now go to an evangelical church. It breaks my heart. Deborah, I'll be assured of my prayers for your family and for your daughter and their family, and I'm praying for their total reversion back to the faith. This is a big issue. This is something I talk to my kids about all the time, and that is, when we're discerning a vocation like marriage with a potential spouse, emotions cannot lead that conversation. How we emotionally feel about that person can't be the litmus test. They have to love God more than they love you. And if by loving God they choose, a a Protestant version of that, then they don't truly love God more than they love you. Okay, it's that simple. It's, emotions can't play a role in that. It's either true or it's not true. If they love God, then they follow truth wherever truth leads them, because truth is a person. That person is Jesus Christ. That person gave us his one holy Catholic and apostolic church. There's no salvation outside that church. So the problem is we raise our kids in this world, and they get so heavily influenced by something we've talked about a lot today already. But it just is a teachable moment for the rest of us. I know it's painful for you, and be assured of our prayers for you personally in this. But for all those young potential parents coming up, raise your kids to be godly. Raise your kids to look for godly spouses. All right, so you're gonna have to put me. I guess I'm putting this on screen then.
Yep.
So you got okay. So what have you sent now, Dr. Stein? What madness are you exposing us to now?
This is the most important update from the Synod on Synodality that you could have.
So cringy. Why in the world do any of these? Why do they? Why?
Are these the hot priest influencers I've been hearing so much about?
It must be. No, maybe by James Martin standards. I don't know, but
Archbishop Lefebvre was right about everything. That's all I gotta
say. Not helping. Guys, you're not. I don't know. Where are these people from? The Philippines? Like, you're not helping the cause here. Okay, you're not helping the cause.
One person responds to the synod.va tweet saying, "I know in the Philippines this looks like this is normal, but to the rest of the world this is very cringe."
It's super cringe, but this is normal there. I had to tell you, but the whole karaoke culture across the Pacific Rim is a real problem to be dealt with, because Cardinal Tagle is a victim of his environment in some ways. In other ways, he chooses this hook, line, and sinker.
So would this be the equivalent of priests in like Wisconsin coming to mass wearing like Packers gear with a
pretty much
with a cheese head on?
Pretty
much.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Go Pack.
Yeah. Go Pack. Okay. Go Bears. Yeah, I don't know. That's cringy.
Real hard hitting stuff from the
I really don't love seeing
the
these videos.
Official Synod on Synodality account on X.
Yep. Synod VA.
Why do you ruin my day like that, Dr. Stein? We were having such a great conversation. We were triggering Jake on a regular basis. And then all of a sudden you had to pull this card out.
Doesn't take much to set me off sometimes.
Doesn't take much to set the Jakester off. But praise be to God, you'll have a new opportunity to set Jake off next week.
Yep.
When we start ACT Bingo afresh on Tuesday morning. ACT After Show Bingo, technically.
Yep.
Because the game doesn't start until Tuesday in the after show. So if you want to win prizes, like Liz Finch has won prizes this week, then you got to play. You're going to get a link next week on Tuesday morning in the after show to get your card. Blah, 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 blah. Prizes are won. That's how it works. Hey, Nicholas Cavazos and Dr. Stein, thank you both. God love you. Have a great Labor Day weekend. We'll see you guys Tuesday morning.